Chapter 2288. His speed was so fast that it was invisible. In an instant, he had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. Boom! His fist stirred up boundless sound waves that swept out in all directions, surpassing the sound barrier as he attacked. At this time, the people of the Duanlong family looked very gloomy. They felt that their bodies were fixed on the spot by an invisible force. They could not move at all. They wanted to concentrate their strength to deal with Yi Shiwen. Even if Yuqin Rui Qian was arrogant, he could not completely ignore the many masters of the Xinyuan family. You even dared to kill the people of the Equipment Emperor Pavilion. You must be tired of living. Today, you will become the sacrifice for the birth of the wonderful staff. Yuqin Rui Qian's words were like a devil's voice that blasted into everyone's ears. It directly shook their eyes and made a buzzing sound. It was as if the whole head was about to explode. Some people with shallow power immediately began to use their power to protect themselves. Only then did they barely suppress the feeling of their head exploding. Insignificant skill? Yi Shiwen was disdainful. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and raised his fist. Golden divine power surged out of it. The monstrous magic power spread out and confronted Yuqin Rui Qian. Bang! The 2 fists collided in the air. It was like 2 astonishing seas colliding in the air. They were rebounded by each other's power. The power of both sides mixed together and exploded in an instant. Dang, dang, dang! Yuqin Rui Qian retreated a few steps. He did not have the upper hand in a pure physical confrontation. He retreated again and again. A bit of surprise flashed in his eyes. Indeed, he was not good at close combat. However, his strength was there. He had the terrifying strength of the late immortal level. Unexpectedly, he was defeated by a guy in the early immortal level. This guy's body was indeed terrifying. Everyone exclaimed. It was just a fight, but Yi Shiwen actually had the upper hand. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen in a different way. Previously, Yuqin Rui Qian said that he killed Ding Yu. Many people did not believe it. Now they somewhat believed it. Perhaps this life-stealing scholar really did have some tricks up his sleeves. You have some skill, but if that's all you've got, then you're still far from it. Yuqin Rui Qian stepped on the ground and stabilized his body. He raised both of his hands, and a long zither condensed from the treasure chi appeared in front of him. Then he suddenly plucked the strings. Suddenly, countless weapons swept over. Many weapons condensed from sound waves covered the sky and covered the earth. Treasured swords, broadswords, long spears, ancient halberds, all kinds of weapons that could be imagined could be found here. Every single one of them exuded a simple and unadorned aura, as if they had been passed down from ancient times. They had an unimaginable might and a feeling of vicissitudes. All the heroes present felt a chill run down their spines. These weapons were clearly illusory, but the energy contained within them was not fake. Any one of them would be able to severely injure a Tao confirming God without any difficulty. Yi Shiwen, be careful. Broken Dragon, Wu Yu couldn't help but remind him. Although the relationship between them wasn't that good, but at least at this time, Yi Shiwen couldn't die. What are you afraid of? It's just some insignificant tricks. Yi Shiwen sneered and suddenly stamped his foot on the ground. The ground shook violently, and the paving stones of the main hall felt as if they were about to collapse. Then, he stretched his claw towards the sky, and claw shadows filled the sky. Divine Claw of Judgment. In an instant, the sound wave weapons that were blasting over were completely destroyed. Boom! On Yi Shiwen's body, a powerful force was surging and releasing. Circles of divine power instantly expanded. He took a step forward and chased after Broken Dragon, Wu Yu once again. The treasure chi around his body also rose at an astonishing speed, forming a raging tide. In the raging tide, a giant dragon was flying. Under his control, it crushed towards Yuqin Rui Qian. This was a complete crushing and complete suppression. It was as if Yi Shiwen didn't know what fear was. Even in the face of a prominent existence like Yuqin Rui Qian, he didn't have the slightest stage fright. On the contrary, actually launched continuous attacks. The space suddenly shattered. It was broken in an instant. Boundless energy was sent out in all directions. So strong. How can this life-snatching scholar be so strong? Everyone's complexion suddenly changed. Yuqin Rui Qian's strength had already shocked them. However, Yishuan didn't give in to him. Almost his whole body was covered with a thin layer of cold sweat. Yuqin Rui Qian's complexion also changed slightly. He had originally thought that Yi Shiwen had killed Ding Yu using some tricks. At least, his strength couldn't be compared with his own. However, Yi Shiwen's strength had completely exceeded his initial estimation in just a few exchanges. Especially, his body was ridiculously strong. He even had some doubts about the true body of this life-snatching scholar. How could it be so powerful? Many famous divine tools flashed in his mind. His true body used to be one of the divine tools in the hands of the Tool Emperor. He had seen many extraordinary existences. However, it seemed that none of them could be compared with Yi Shiwen. Just like the ordinary demon race, the more powerful the true body of a treasure demon was, the more powerful its strength would be. Yuqin Rui Qian was able to reach the Tao realm in less than 1,000 years because of his powerful body. After all, the treasure demon was different from the human race. Their long lifespan allowed them to practice for a long time. However, their cultivation speed couldn't be compared with that of the human race. For the treasure demon, it could reach the Tao realm in a mere 1,000 years. Such a cultivation speed wasn't inferior to Yi Shiwen's. In fact, it was even faster. Yi Shiwen was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Just this one move was enough to force him to such a state that he was slightly injured. However, this kind of injury was nothing to him at all. He only needed to circulate his qi slightly, and he had already recovered by 70 to 80%. Break for me! Yuqin Rui Qian's eyes suddenly opened wide. He spread his hands, and a dreadful sound sword directly attacked Yi Shiwen. It was so fast that it didn't give him any chance to breathe. Boom! The sound sword directly bombarded Yi Shiwen's body. However, it still couldn't cause any damage to Yi Shiwen. It just shattered into dregs on the spot and dissipated in the sky. However, he still took this opportunity to get a chance to catch his breath. Zheng! The sound of the zither strings vibrating was heard. An invisible sound wave surged out and instantly appeared in Yi Shiwen's mind. Shua! A huge illusion suddenly appeared in front of Yi Shiwen's eyes. This illusion covered the entire world. This was an unprecedented slaughterhouse. There were endless mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Screams were echoing in all directions. Blood was flowing in reverse like a river. It seemed as if Yi Shiwen had suddenly fallen into hell. These screams were wrapped in endless sounds. Yi Shiwen clearly saw those faces. Weren't they the faces of those people who had died in Yi Shiwen's hands? His hands turned crimson, as if they had been soaked in fresh blood. You have killed countless people. Your sins are grave. You should fall into a Vichy hell for eternity. You should never be reincarnated. A loud shout came from the sky. It seemed that Yi Shiwen was going to be judged. Get out of my way. Although I have killed people, they all deserved it. I don't regret it. I have no regrets. Yi Shiwen's eyes burst with golden light. Only I can control my own fate. No one can control me. No one can judge me. You are not qualified to judge me. Yi Shiwen's hands tore out endless golden light. This seemingly endless Avicii hell was completely torn apart by Yi Shiwen's hands. His eyes suddenly regained their clarity. In front of him, Yuqin Rui Qian had unsheathed a long sword and rushed towards his face. The sword light was like a terrible torrent, blasting towards him. At the critical moment, he finally reacted. The demon summoning banner directly turned into a cloud of black smoke and wrapped him in it. At the critical moment, it allowed him to escape this fatal blow. Boom! The sword light blasted on the demon summoning banner and directly shook it. Yi Shiwen remained motionless. He had escaped the fatal blow at the critical moment. Even Yi Shiwen couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. He had almost fallen into the trap. If his mind had wavered even a little bit, then he might have died in the illusion. It could be said that it was extremely dangerous. He had seen a lot of illusion masters. However, he had never seen one who could be compared with Yuqin Rui Qian. Moreover, Illusion was only one of Yuqin Ruiqian's means. It was far from everything. This was the most terrifying part of Yuqin Ruiqian. His powerful illusory abilities naturally came from his main body, the phantom dragon Shaqin. Yuqin Ruiqian's eyes suddenly flashed with a bit of surprise. He had thought that Yi Shiwen wouldn't be able to escape from this attack. So, he had arranged the illusion technique. So, he had made all kinds of psychological suggestions in order to pave the way for this attack. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to create such a powerful environment in an instant. However, the firmness of Yi Shiwen's artistic conception had obviously exceeded his expectations. It was almost broken in an instant. He didn't know that Yi Shiwen's mental cultivation was far beyond his strength. It had reached a terrifying level. Under the influence of the enlightening mind ancient tree all year round, it was almost the same as the legendary beheading 3 corpses. Cutting off the good and evil self did not mean that there were no good thoughts, evil thoughts, and self. However, after cutting off all of them, whether it was good or evil, or even one's own desires, it could not affect one's rational judgment. Yi Shiwen's current state was similar to this situation. Attacking his mind was almost like hitting the muzzle of a gun. Chapter 2289. For Yi Shiwen, this kind of attack had almost no lethality. If an ordinary master of illusion technique was in front of Yi Shiwen, then he or she would be killed in minutes. However, Yuqin Ruiqian was not an ordinary person. Yuqin Ruiqian's fear towards Yi Shiwen increased by a level. His offensive was easily disintegrated, but he was not stunned. His body suddenly swept backwards in midair. At the same time, the iron sword in his hand suddenly condensed and burst out in astonishing light. It chopped down towards Yi Shiwen with a mighty momentum. This sword concentrated all of Yuqin Ruiqian's understanding of swordsmanship. Many principles were flashing with astonishing light. In an instant, Yi Shiwen's whole body would be cleaved into 2 halves. Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and roared. He turned his hand and condensed overturning the sky seal. It fell towards Yuqin Ruiqian on the spot and smashed the void almost instantaneously. The sword chi had not been able to get close to Yi Shiwen and had been cleanly pushed away. Be careful! Suddenly, everyone warned. Just when Yi Shiwen smashed the sword chi of the iron sword with his palm, a simple and unadorned long zither emerged in front of Yuqin Ruiqian. This time it was not a virtual long zither, but a real long zither. Everyone's eyes suddenly widened. Everyone could guess that this long zither should be Yuqin Ruiqian's main body, the phantom dragon sand zither, which was rumored to be the treasured zither that had followed the Tool Emperor. This phantom dragon sand zither instantly transformed into a long spear and violently shot towards Yi Shiwen. It happened almost at the same time. By the time everyone warned, the long spear had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. Such speed could be regarded as extremely fast. Puchi! This long spear directly submerged into Yi Shiwen's body. It seemed as if it had suddenly pierced through Yi Shiwen's body. There was a faint white smoke coming out of the wound. A trace of heat was flowing out, and golden blood flowed out. Humph! What, deadly scholar? Just as so. Yuqin Ruiqian could not help but sneer. The smile on his face looked somewhat ferocious. Looking from afar, one could see an extremely heroic scene in the void. Yi Shiwen's heart had been pierced by Yuqin Ruiqian despite his strength. It's over, it's over. We shouldn't have believed that this deadly scholar could contend against Yuqin Ruiqian. He was just bragging. This time, even if the life-stealing scholar doesn't die, he'll be heavily injured. That's right, this kind of attack is really terrifying. It's created by the illusionary dragon sand zither, and it's far stronger than ordinary magic treasures. If it were me, I'm afraid I would have exploded on the spot. Attack! Fight him to the death. Our Duanlong family can die in battle, but we will never bend our knees and surrender. Duanlong Wuyu roared. The experts of the Duanlong family quickly reacted. At this time, it was not up to them to choose. With Yuqin Ruiqian's tyranny, he would absolutely not let them go. Rather than waiting for death, it was better to fight with him. At the last moment, When all the paths of survival were cut off, these Duan-Long family's geniuses used their rare weapons to fight together. Rumble! Suddenly, under the guidance of the joint attack, countless attacks formed into a torrent of martial arts. It was suffused with a monstrous divine light and rushed towards Yuqin Rui Qian. Just a group of ants. Originally, I wanted to let you die a quick death. Now that you dare to resist, I'll let you suffer until you die. I'll let you know what terror is. Yuqin Rui Qian said faintly. Looking at the void, he nodded with satisfaction. Many people were hiding behind the spatial planes and smiling in fear. He wanted to take this opportunity to kill these people from the Duanlong family. He wanted to kill the chicken to warn the monkey so that the other forces would not dare to disobey the orders of the Imperial Weapon Pavilion. This was actually his most important goal. He plucked a string and formed an air shield in the void. The torrent of attacks from the Duanlong family's experts was easily blocked by it. This was definitely the strongest shield. At the same time, his illusionary dragon sand zither could also transform into various kinds of weapons. It was equivalent to a combination of attack and defense. It was very sharp. With this advantage, he also had a very deep understanding of various martial arts. Boom! 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 Loud explosions resounded. These Duanlong family's experts, who had been forced into a dead end, became even crazier. They mobilized all the martial power in their body in order to kill Yuqin Rui Qian. At the very least, they wanted to inflict serious injuries on him and force him to retreat. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to escape this calamity. Yuqin Rui Qian was not to be outdone. He attacked again and again. He was evenly matched with the experts of the Duanlong family. He did not fall into a disadvantageous position. Humph! You're just a motley crew. You want to deal with me? Yuqin Rui Qian couldn't help but sneer. Step by step, he approached the experts of the Duanlong clan like he was taking a stroll in the garden. These experts of the Duanlong clan couldn't pose any threat to him. They couldn't even break through his outer defense. In his eyes, this group of people together was not as threatening as Yi Shiwen alone. Let's go all out with him. We must hold on. As long as the army behind us arrives, we will be safe. An expert of the Duanlong family roared. Their strength was too weak in the face of Yuqin Rui Qian, who was like a god. They were not Yuqin Rui Qian's opponent. They could only choose to resist and wait for the experts behind them to arrive. Then they might have a chance of survival. You want to wait for the experts behind you to arrive? Are you kidding me? Yuqin Rui Qian gave a loud shout, and the magical power of his whole body vibrated. Countless weapons rushed out from the void and instantly broke the martial arts torrent bombarded by the experts of the Duanlong clan, and even sent the experts of the Duanlong clan flying. Puff! 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 These experts of the Duanlong family fought until the last moment. However, they were still not Yuqin Rui Qian's opponent. They were sent flying one after another. They spurted out mouthfuls of blood. Humph! This is the consequence of opposing our Imperial Pavilion. Yuqin Rui Qian said coldly. Yuqin Rui Qian, I think it's too early for you to be complacent. Yi Shiwen's voice suddenly appeared. Yuqin Rui Qian suddenly became vigilant and looked at Yi Shiwen. He saw Yi Shiwen's big hand grabbing the long spear. His palm turned red as if it was heating up. The long spear that had pierced into Yi Shiwen's body was broken inch by inch in his hand. His wound was also recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a moment, it had completely recovered. Yuqin Rui Qian, you are just SOSO. Eat my fist. Yi Shiwen's voice hadn't yet faded, and his fist had already arrived. Yuqin Rui Qian's reaction was extremely fast, and he reacted almost instantaneously. In that split second, he flew backwards and avoided Yi Shiwen's offensive. He calmly launched a sound wave attack while retreating and bombarded towards Yi Shiwen in bursts. Yi Shiwen chased after him and broke the earth-shattering sound wave attack. Then he smashed it into powder with a single punch. How could the current Yuqin Rui Qian seriously injure Yi Shiwen? It was simply impossible. If Yi Shiwen hadn't refined the power of the half-divine pellet, he might have been seriously injured by Yuqin Rui Qian. But now, it was simply impossible for him to be seriously injured. Yi Shiwen continued to chase after him. Halfway through, Yi Shiwen, who was already extremely fast, actually became even faster. He actually accelerated. His hands flew up and turned into him, overturning the sky seal. He directly blasted towards Yuqin Rui Qian. Bang! The transparent protective cover around Yuqin Rui Qian's body was completely shattered on the spot. It couldn't even block a little bit of Yi Shiwen's attack. The overturning the sky seal was a supreme killing technique. At this moment, it revealed its ferocity. Everyone was shocked. What kind of technique is this? It's so powerful. All of Yuqin Rui Qian's techniques are nothing in front of him. What's the background of this deadly scholar? I've never seen such a pervert before. Looking at this scene, even the most determined people would doubt whether they were watching too much. Yuqin Rui Qian, who was majestic just now, looked a little too weak in front of Yi Shiwen. I don't believe it. Yuqin Rui Qian no longer retreated. He stabilized his footsteps and unexpectedly attacked Yi Shiwen. He instantly rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. Fast, fast, fast. His speed was fast to the peak. He attacked in front of Yi Shiwen. When his palm fell, the space suddenly shattered. Under this palm, it almost completely collapsed. Behind him, there was a faint shadow of the phantom dragon Sand Zither that was constantly growing. It was the real body of Yuqin Rui Qian. It was the complete phantom dragon Sand Zither. At this moment, his strength actually increased to a level in one breath. It was even more tyrannical than before. Boom! The peak of the late stage of immortality. Compared to Ding Yu, Yuqin Rui Qian was much more tyrannical. What? Yuqin Rui Qian, you've actually reached the peak of the late stage of immortality. Broken Dragon Wu Yu did not dare to approach the battlefield, but he still had good eyesight. He was almost dumbfounded. Yes, I'm afraid you people will never know that I've already recalled the rest of my body. Now, I've reached the peak of the late stage of immortality. After a period of time, I'll really be able to step into the peak of immortality. Even those old guys won't be my opponent then. Yuqin Rui Qian laughed loudly. He was unusually proud. The aura of his body was rising higher and higher. It was completely different from before. If Yi Shiwen had not forced him to this point, it was obvious that he would not have used all of his strength. It was almost like a reborn change suppressing Yi Shiwen. Chapter 2290. In the face of such a strong Yi Shiwen, Yuqin Rui Qian did not have the slightest reservation. He broke out all of his strength, which caused a strong pressure on Yi Shiwen. The people of Broken Dragon Clan were in despair. Yi Shiwen continued to break out. However, Yuqin Rui Qian was like a bottomless abyss. In the face of Yuqin Rui Qian's powerful strength, Yi Shiwen immediately stepped into the void, shattering the oncoming momentum. All of this was immediately destroyed. Humph, you're just playing tricks. Yi Shiwen smiled disdainfully. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, raised his hand, and punched directly towards Yuqin Rui Qian. However, Yuqin Rui Qian disappeared in front of him. It was as if he had disappeared into the subspace at the most critical time. Whoosh! 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 Countless attacks blotted out the sky and directly bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. They didn't give Yi Shiwen any opportunity to escape and blocked all the possible escape routes for him. Hide? Let me see where you can hide. Yi Shiwen's body also broke out a powerful momentum. It was not any worse than Yuqin Rui Qian's. In fact, it was even stronger than him. It is useless to hide in the subspace. I will smash this subspace. Let me see where you can hide. Yi Shiwen suddenly stepped on the ground, and a golden tide surged out. These attacks had not yet arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. They were destroyed on the spot by the ripples set off by the golden tide. A terrifying force suddenly covered from under his feet. Yi Shiwen was like a terrifying Tyrannosaurus Rex. Wherever he passed, the space was completely shattered. In front of him, Yuqin Rui Qian, who was very confident, could only keep dodging. Yi Shiwen's punch was unbelievably heavy. With just one punch, He could smash countless layers of subspace with just his physical strength. Yuqin Rui Qian's full-strength attack could only achieve such an effect. This made Yuqin Rui Qian, who felt very safe, unable to stand still. Wherever he hid, Yi Shiwen would chase after him like a shadow. Although Yuqin Rui Qian had recovered his entire body, he did not dare to fight with Yi Shiwen's physical strength. Boom! 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 This kind of attack could be seen everywhere. The sky had already been shattered into countless fragments under the pursuit of the two, forming a huge vortex. Looking at it, it seemed like the end of the world had just happened. Suddenly, Yuqin Rui Qian leaped up like a legendary deity. In front of him, the phantom dragon Sanzither didn't look like its original form, which was just a tool spirit. Instead, its real body had manifested. An invisible majestic aura was released. Yuqin Rui Qian had been forced into a dead end. He didn't need to use his full strength to deal with Yi Shiwen. Therefore, he didn't have the slightest scruples. At this moment, he used his most powerful technique, the phantom dragon Sanzither. He borrowed the power of the divine artifact itself. Although the illusionary dragon Sanguqin was his main body, it didn't mean that he could borrow the power of the illusionary dragon Sanguqin whenever he wanted. This power was hidden in the illusionary dragon Sanguqin. It didn't belong to him. Instead, it was the energy left behind by the Tool Emperor. Yuqin Rui Qian could control this power. This meant that he had already refined the illusionary dragon Sanguqin to a certain extent. At this moment, Yuqin Rui Qian seemed to have transformed into a peerless master. He was the Tool Emperor who had created everything. He had shrouded everything and dominated everything. Clang! A loud clanging sound was heard. Suddenly, everyone in the hall clearly felt that they couldn't move at all. The power that had erupted from the illusionary dragon Sanguqin had completely enveloped them. You think you can contend against me? This is the power of the origin of the illusionary dragon Sanguqin. It doesn't matter how many of you come at me. The former Tool Emperor could kill tens of millions of powerful enemies at once. But it's overkill to use this power to deal with you. An even more enormous power came crashing down from the illusionary dragon Sanguqin after he said this. It instantly pressed down, and the sound of the Guqin became more and more urgent. Everyone clearly felt that the principles that had been condensed on their bodies were breaking and disintegrating. The surrounding space also transformed into a pair of big hands in a split second, strangling them. It was very terrifying. This attack didn't distinguish between you and me. Although it was mainly aimed at the Duan Long family, everyone was still affected by it. They felt as if they were about to collapse. Everyone screamed in succession. Their muscles seemed to have been squeezed by a powerful force, and blood was gushing out. Even if it was just a little bit of power left by the Tool Emperor in the illusionary dragon Sanguqin, it was still not something that everyone could compare with. It was completely imaginable that the Tool Emperor could kill tens of millions of powerful enemies in one breath with the help of the illusionary dragon Sanguqin. Even with Yi Shiwen's present cultivation, he couldn't achieve such an amazing feat. Yuqin Rui Qian had borrowed such a power. It was even more difficult to resist compared to the Eternal Realm experts. Even Duan Long Wuyu and the others felt a sense of disaster. This was a real disaster. The illusionary dragon Sanguqin still had the power of the Emperor. It was enough to tear and suppress all resistance. It could crush everything. Everyone was constantly operating their power, desperately resisting. Many people simply manifested their body to resist. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to hold on. And at this time, a person was maintaining his figure in the midst of this monstrous pressure. He was Yi Shiwen. At this time, he wasn't the slightest bit afraid. Yuqin Rui Qian, even if you have the residual power of the Emperor of Instrument in your body, so what? No matter how powerful a celestial tool is, it still depends on who it is used for. You want to subdue me? You are still far from it. A similar power erupted from Yi Shiwen's body. Tianyuan Mirror seemed to have received some provocation. A dreadful power awakened from the body of Tianyuan Mirror. It was faintly contending with Yuqin Rui Qian's illusionary dragon Sanguqin. Break for me! Yi Shiwen blasted a punch without the slightest hesitation. The power of the mortal world rushed out from the gaps of his fingers. It formed a world of the mortal world and suppressed the opponent. Yi Shiwen blasted a punch with the bloody light of Tianyuan mirror. Bang! Just like the shattering of a mirror, the pressure formed by the dreadful energy on the illusionary dragon sand Guqin shattered in an instant. The formidable fist energy unexpectedly arrived in front of Yuqin Rui Qian. However, it still failed to hit Yuqin Rui Qian. It was blocked. It's useless, deadly scholar. No matter how hard you struggle, no one can hold on under the pressure of this emperor's power. Yuqin Rui Qian's hands played the zither, leaving afterimages. The sound of the Guqin became more and more rapid, erupting with a more powerful power. The divine power protecting Yi Shiwen's body was shattered wherever the sound wave passed. It directly bombarded Yi Shiwen's body. If the strength of the person was weaker, he would have been killed on the spot. However, Yi Shiwen was different. His tyrant body had already been cultivated to perfection. There was no blind spot. Even if he was hit by the sound wave, his tyrant body would not collapse. Yi Shiwen's outer defenses had been breached, but his body was still there. So, he had recovered in a matter of minutes. Yi Shiwen didn't stay for a moment. He directly attacked Yuqin Rui Qian. I don't believe that you can hold on for a long time. He opened the eyes of redemption and easily discovered that the spiritual power in Yuqin Rui Qian's body was burning rapidly. To control such a powerful emperor's power for one's own use, one could imagine how huge the consumption was. You want me to consume all of it? You are too naive. Yuqin Rui Qian didn't care at all. An incomparably huge spiritual vein flew out and burned fiercely. Then it replenished his body. It was almost as if it was replenished as much as it was consumed. There was no danger of it being exhausted. Damn, what a wastrel. Yi Shiwen looked at the opponent's completely local tyrant style of fighting. He couldn't help but secretly scold him. Although he usually spent more time in the Bai family than Yuqin Rui Qian, he had to painstakingly think of ways to collect them. How could he be like Yuqin Rui Qian, who had the support of the sect? This was completely different. No one had thought that Yuqin Rui Qian didn't care about anything in order to deal with Yi Shiwen. He actually consumed an entire high-grade spiritual vein in one breath in order to maintain such fighting strength. Under his pressure, even more people coughed up blood. Not everyone had the ability to withstand it. Everyone could truly feel the legendary majesty that belonged to an emperor. At this time, Yi Shiwen, who had been forced to this point, could also be said to have used all his means. The devil's summoning banner wrapped around his body. Tianyuan mirror was constantly hovering above his head. He held the space-breaking sword in his hand. All the coercion was chopped off by him. It couldn't stop him from moving forward. Emperor's tyrannical descent. Yi Shiwen roared like an emperor. The three great incarnations also integrated into his body. He chopped down with his sword. The world shattered. The sword light was like a long river and fiercely bombarded his body. Bang! The sword chopped down. All of Yuqin Rui Qian's defenses were broken. He couldn't resist it at all. The sword finally chopped down on the phantom dragon sand zither. Boom! The phantom dragon sand zither, which originally looked like a corpse, suddenly broke. It seemed as if it hadn't been collected properly. Puff! Yuqin Rui Qian suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood. His complexion turned deathly pale. Although he had found his body, it hadn't been long, so he couldn't completely fuse with his body. This time, he was seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was about to move further. Suddenly, the world suddenly trembled. The sky shook and the earth quaked. It seemed as if the world was about to be destroyed. Chapter 2291. Rumble! The hall began to tremble and shake unceasingly. Everyone's attention was completely attracted by the magic staff. The crystal wall that had been protecting the magic staff disappeared in an instant. No one was in the mood to care about the battle between Yi Shiwen and Yuqin Rui Qian. Everyone took a deep breath and reacted instantly. They flew towards the magic staff. Everyone knew very well what the mystic magic staff meant to the entire Equipment Emperor Heaven. Basically, They could unify the world and become invincible if they obtained it. Even a king-level powerhouse wouldn't dare to resist the attack of a supreme Dao tool, let alone other people. That belongs to our Tool Emperor Pavilion. None of you are allowed to touch it. Many experts of the Tool Emperor Pavilion also flew out. Yuqin Rui Qian, who was lying on the ground, kept roaring, but he didn't have the strength to follow them. Just as everyone was about to pounce on the Wonder Magic Staff, a silhouette rushed past everyone and pounced on the Wonder Magic Staff. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen? Boom! A burst of dazzling divine light erupted from the magic staff. A powerful force swept out like a wave, trying to push Yi Shiwen out. How can you stop here? Yi Shiwen roared. The Celestial Emperor tool refining technique in his body was operated to the extreme. His hands produced a powerful suction force, forming a whirlpool. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen clearly felt that something had flown into his body from the wonderful magic staff. Then, it submerged into his body and disappeared without a trace. However, no one was aware of all this in the burst of dazzling divine light. Yi Shiwen was shocked. He slightly relaxed, and the magic staff broke free from his hand. It flew out of the hall and instantly disappeared into the sky. Everyone was stunned. This sudden turn of events caused everyone to be at a loss for what to do. Even the most courageous person would not have thought that the situation would develop into such a situation. The wondrous magic staff had actually slipped away. They had actually slipped away under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Deadly Scholar, where's the magic staff? Someone suddenly couldn't accept this fact and shouted at Yi Shiwen. Everyone had seen that Yi Shiwen was indeed the closest to it at that time. Get lost! Are you blind? Can't you see that the magic staff has flown away? Yi Shiwen said coldly. Life-stealing scholar, you were the closest to it. You're the only one who knows what happened. Many faintly discernible figures surrounded Yi Shiwen. The magic staffs had broken through the space and disappeared. They couldn't catch up with them in time. So, they could only try to break through from Yi Shiwen's side. Scram! Yi Shiwen replied with an ice-cold expression. There was no need for him to stay since the magic staffs had already flown away. He didn't have much time left. He had to leave the weapon Emperor Heaven before the crystal wall was completely repaired. Otherwise, he would be trapped here for the rest of his life. He didn't even know if he would be able to leave in another 100,000 years. It definitely has something to do with him, or else he wouldn't be so flustered. Someone shouted in the darkness, only using a primordial spirit to shout, so no one knew who it was. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, a figure fell out of the void. His figure was grabbed by the neck by a large hand. He was like a duck that had been grabbed by the neck, unable to move at all. Boom! This figure had been grabbed by Yi Shiwen. He was the one who had tried to provoke conflict between Yi Shiwen and everyone in the darkness. If anyone thinks that I have something to do with the disappearance of the magic staffs, then come and try. I'll see if my fist is harder or your head is harder. Yi Shiwen looked around and said coldly. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. Some people thought that Yi Shiwen might know something. After all, he was the closest to the magic staffs at that time. However, they didn't dare to step forward when they saw Yi Shiwen, who looked like a raging beast. After all, everyone knew that the magic staffs had disappeared at that time. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, they didn't have any solid evidence or reason to insist that it was related to Yi Shiwen. They were just angry that Yi Shiwen had almost taken the magic staffs with him. After they calmed down after being threatened by Yi Shiwen's fist, they thought about it carefully. The magic staffs were supreme Dao tools. It was unrealistic for them to want to subdue them. It was normal for them to fly away by themselves. The attack just now was just everyone's unbearable venting after the disappointment in their hearts. They didn't think that this matter had anything to do with Yi Shiwen. It was just that they needed to find a scapegoat after suddenly losing it. If it had fallen into the hands of any of them, they might have been able to seize it by trickery and other means. But now, it had flown away. What was going on? However, this scapegoat didn't seem to be a soft persimmon. He couldn't be needed casually. If they wanted to find trouble with Yi Shiwen, they had to see if they had such good teeth. Although the Tool Emperor Pavilion was unwilling, Yuqin Ruiqian was already lying on the ground. The remaining people were no threat to Yi Shiwen. Since the magic staffs have flown away, we shouldn't stay for long. Otherwise, we will be left in the treasure house forever, Yi Shiwen said to the people of the Duanlong clan. Then, he took the lead and turned into a stream of light, flying out of the hall. The other masters of the Duanlong clan also followed Yi Shiwen and flew out. Everyone reacted one after another. Since the magic staffs had flown away, they couldn't stay here anymore. Yi Shiwen didn't dare to stay at all. He opened the light wings on his back and flew with all his strength. In almost a few seconds, he had rushed out of the treasure house. The treasure house itself was not that big. It was just that each side hall of the treasure house was a hidden subspace. That was why it took people so long to search. Now, he returned along the original path without stopping at all. Naturally, his speed was also faster. After leaving the treasure house, he didn't stop at all. He flew toward the hole in the crystal wall of the Tool Emperor Heaven. The entire Tool Emperor Heaven had a seal left by the Tool Emperor. If he didn't leave through the crystal wall, there was no other way. He kept tearing the space in the Tool Emperor Heaven and shuttled through the space. It was too easy for him. After entering the early stage of a mortal level, his understanding of space had almost become instinctive. No wonder it was said that space was an existence that only gods could come into contact with. Rumble! The entire Tool Emperor Heaven was shaking crazily, as if it was the end of the world. There were treasure demons running around restlessly everywhere. Not all treasure demons were very clear about the cause of this. Yi Shiwen rushed, but when he arrived at the crack in the crystal wall, he found that there was only a little space left in the entire crack. It was only half a person's body size. Who's there? Yi Shiwen's appearance immediately alerted the treasure demons that were guarding here. Go away! At this time, Yi Shiwen was burning with anxiety. He didn't have the mood to explain to them. He directly blasted the treasure demons away and then rushed out. Boom! The moment he came out, the hole in the entire Tool Emperor Heaven was completely repaired. He couldn't help but feel slightly relieved. Almost. This time, it was really almost. He almost died in the Tool Emperor Heaven. This trip was perfect. When he first entered, he was only at the 8th level of Powong Realm. Now he was already in the early stage of a mortal level. Although it was not perfect for him, it was already a great improvement. Moreover, it was only a mere 10 years. If there was any imperfection in this perfect journey, it would be watching the magic staff slip away from his hands in the end. Such a loss was enough to make people's hearts ache. Fortunately, he had never obtained it before. Otherwise, it would be the most painful to lose it again. At this moment, Ancient Weapon City was in chaos. This time, tens of thousands of experts from various families had entered. In the end, not even 100 of them managed to return. Only a few of them managed to return. But compared to the scale of tens of thousands of people, this loss was enough to make all the families vomit blood. Among these, only the Hidden Valley was considered to be slightly better. None of the geniuses selected from the deity Abyss were missing. Moreover, there were even the monkey and the others who entered the Tao validation realm. It could be said that the harvest was not small. Although the old antiques that were transferred from various places were all annihilated, it was considered to be within an acceptable range. Originally, only 1 in 10, or even 1 in 100, could become a demigod at the peak of the demigod realm. This time, it could be said that they were lucky. The other clans suffered heavy losses, and there were many who were completely annihilated. Only Ao, Sheba, escaped from the Dragon Island. It was said that everyone on the Dragon Island went crazy and burned their lifespan to delay the treasure demons in the Tool Emperor Heaven. They escorted Ao, Sheba, out of the Tool Emperor Heaven. Even so, Ao, Sheba was seriously injured and would not be able to recover in a short time. This time, the Dragon Island sent a lot of experts. It could be said that they suffered a double loss. In the Ancient Weapon City, many tyrannical auras erupted. They were all top-notch experts sent by various clans. Facing such a situation that had not changed in a million years, they suddenly panicked. Not only did all of the clans suffer heavy losses, but more importantly, the Tool Emperor Heaven suddenly turned hostile. This was somewhat unexpected. Originally, they used their powerful strength to force the Tool Emperor Heaven to sign this agreement. Who would have thought that the situation would suddenly change and turn hostile? What exactly happened? The remaining hundreds of people were dragged to the ancient weapon city, especially the Tool Emperor Pavilion, which became the most eye-catching existence this time. The other clans had at most 1 or 2 people, and at least one was completely annihilated. Only the team of nearly 10 people from the Tool Emperor Pavilion had all returned. How could it not be eye-catching? Chapter 2292. Amidst the wailing, the Hidden Valleys team seemed very strange, especially since the people who survived were actually from the Hidden Valley's deification abyss. This was even stranger. In the Hidden Valley, there was definitely more than just the deification abyss. It could even be said that the deification abyss was only a place to train newcomers. After cultivating in the deification abyss for a period of time, regardless of the results, it would be divided among the various Hidden Valley branches, including those powerful demigod peak antiques. In fact, they were from the various Hidden Valley branches. Prior to this, no one would have thought that this group of juniors could actually create such a miracle. Not only did they all escape, but there were even some existences who had officially entered the Tao confirming realm. Everyone knew that there was no way to enter the Tao confirming realm in the Weapon Emperor Heaven, but they did it. Moreover, it wasn't just one person, which made everyone even more excited. It just so happened that it happened in such a situation. Therefore, everyone turned their attention to them. However, as Yi Shiwen expected, although they were interrogated by various forces, none of them betrayed Yi Shiwen. After all, they had boarded the pirate ship. If Yi Shiwen hadn't informed them, they would have been dead. However, they didn't tell this news to those antiques, which was already a big deal. Moreover, even if it was for their own sake, they couldn't reveal that they already knew this news in advance. Otherwise, not only would they have to face the attacks of the major branches in the Hidden Valley, but even the other king-conferring sects would also go crazy. Everyone understood the reason, but they had lost so many talents in one go. Many of them even had hopes of entering the Tao confirming realm. How could they calm down? Seeing that they couldn't get any information out of Yi Shiwen, the major forces immediately gave up. After all, they didn't think that this matter had anything to do with them. The sudden change in the Weapon Emperor Heaven wasn't something they could control. Therefore, in their opinion, they were just lucky at most. After all, the Hidden Valley had indeed suffered heavy losses this time. Compared to the other forces, it was only slightly better. Among them, Yi Shiwen was the one who escaped at the last moment. However, he didn't attract too much attention. Although Yi Shiwen alone had suppressed the entire battlefield, according to the legend of the surviving hundreds of people, he should have become the focus of all the major forces. But now, no one was in the mood to care about this. Yi Shiwen found the Hidden Valley's base in the ancient Tool City after he came out. Monkey and the others were also there. Ling Fei and the Hidden Dragon also stayed there temporarily and did not leave. Yi Shiwen, I owe you my life this time. The blue-eyed golden toad took a step forward and said. They were the first batch to escape, but even so, they were still attacked by the treasure demons that rushed over. Fortunately, they were already not far from the exit at that time, so they were able to escape successfully. However, there were many people who were more unlucky than them. The Dragon Island was not the only one in such a tragic situation. Many forces tried their best, but were still unable to escape. Many of them were killed by the treasure demon army while they were still in the treasury. Occasionally, a few managed to escape, but in front of the treasure demon army that had been waiting for a long time near the crystal wall, they were unable to fight back at all and were killed. This made these people who escaped first couldn't help but be drenched in cold sweat. If it wasn't for Yi Shiwen, perhaps they would really be dead. If Yi Shiwen didn't let them escape in advance, the chances of breaking through the layers of obstacles with their strength were too small. Although he had some conflicts with Yi Shiwen before, it didn't mean that he didn't have the ability to distinguish it all. Yes, I owe you my life this time. If it wasn't for your news, I'm afraid we would have all been annihilated this time. The 10 absolute saints nodded and said. Yi Shiwen could have not told them, but he still said it. Just this alone made them have nothing to say. The two old antiques who had escaped together with him also came along. They were drenched in cold sweat. The people who came with them in the same batch had all died. This was the most terrifying thing. Their gratitude towards Yi Shiwen grew day by day. All right, I don't think Yi Shiwen will necessarily listen to these words of gratitude. In short, the future is long. The monkey stood up and said. Everyone nodded one after another. The future was long. There would be plenty of opportunities to return this favor in the future, especially for the monkey and the others who had achieved Tao. The future was truly long. It should be eternal. Yes, Yi Shiwen, we will follow your lead in the future. We will also listen to you in the future. Someone shouted. Yi Shiwen smiled. Although these people's allegiance was not pure, he had cultivated the first batch of his own people in the Hidden Valley. This business was not a loss. After a short gathering, everyone left one after another. Only Ling Fei and Yin Long were left. Yi Shiwen, I thought you would never come back. Ling Fei patted her proud chest with a look of lingering fear. However, as the saying goes, good people don't live long, while scourges last for 1,000 years. You won't die so easily. Sure enough, it's just as I said. Yi Shiwen, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Although he had never considered himself a good person, he had not reached the level of a scourge yet. Yin Long greets the young master. Yin Long said excitedly. There were too many people just now, so he did not greet Yi Shiwen in order to avoid exposing their relationship. However, at this moment, he was extremely excited. Although the instrument Emperor Heaven was big, it was like a huge cage. For ordinary creatures, they would not feel that it was small even if they lived for a lifetime. However, for a top expert like him who was about to reach the eternal realm, it was a small birdcage. Now that he was finally free from the shackles of the instrument Emperor Heaven, he was like a fish in the open sea and a bird in the sky. He could finally see the outside world and not be bound to the same place for life. Get up. I don't have so many rules here. Yi Shiwen waved his hand and said, By the way, didn't Yi Wudi come back with you? He did not see Yi Wudi in the crowd, so he felt a little strange. That much said that he had an epiphany this time and wanted to go back to practice in seclusion. Therefore, he did not wait for you to come out and told you to look for him at the Nine Saint Mountain when you have time. Ling Fei said. What? Yi Shiwen almost choked on his saliva. He could not help but burst into laughter. How many years had it been? Apart from him back then, there was probably no one who dared to say that Yi Wudi was a mutt. How did you see through his roots? Yi Shiwen said while holding back his laughter. Is it hard to see through? I saw through it at a glance. A strange look appeared in Ling Fei's eyes as she said this. It wasn't her usual light gray pupils. Instead, it was a six-pointed star array, and a full moon was hanging above this six-pointed star array. It looked elegant and demonic at the same time. I'm amazing, right? This is the unique magical power of our fallen angel clan. It is called the Trial's Eye. No evil can hide from the Trial's Eye. Any concealment is meaningless. Yi Shiwen could not help but be secretly speechless. One must know that he could not see through the wolf cub's body even if he opened the Eye of Redemption. But now, Ling Fei could see through his body with the help of the Trial's Eye. She was indeed different. However, this did not mean that the Trial's Eye was more powerful than the Eye of Redemption. It could only be said that each had their own strengths. But even so, this Trial's Eye was indeed not ordinary. But he hates it when people mention his body. You couldn't have said it in front of him, right? Yi Shiwen looked at Ling Fei suspiciously and said, I did. Ling Fei said indifferently. Then, you didn't fight? Yi Shiwen looked at Ling Fei. Then, he looked at Long Yin, who had a bitter smile on his face. He immediately knew the answer. They had probably fought. How could that mongrel be my opponent? He hasn't even confirmed his Tao. I can easily deal with him without any pressure. Ling Fei proudly said. She had already confirmed her Tao, but the wolf cub hadn't. The wolf cub was already comparable to a Tao confirming expert. However, it also depended on what kind of Tao confirming expert it was. Let alone being comparable to a Tao confirming expert, the wolf cub would be depressed to the point of vomiting blood even if it was a Tao-confirming expert. An ordinary person couldn't withstand it. However, Ling Fei wasn't an ordinary person either. The little princess of the fallen angel clan also had an extraordinary background. She also had a noble bloodline. Moreover, these two wouldn't submit to anyone except Yi Shiwen. In fact, even Yi Shiwen couldn't do anything to them most of the time. So, he had a huge headache. Yi Shiwen hated them very much now that he had bumped into them. Yi Shiwen really hated that he hadn't come back earlier to see such a wonderful scene. He now understood why the wolf cub hadn't even bid farewell to him. It had gone back to do closed-door training because it had comprehended something. According to Yi Shiwen's understanding of the wolf cub, it had probably lost a fight. Moreover, it had lost to a woman. So, it didn't have the face to see Yi Shiwen. Now it had to go back and cultivate properly. It was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. It would get its revenge sooner or later. He couldn't help but laugh as he thought of that scene. Ling Fei proudly raised her elegant eyebrows. She looked at Yi Shiwen with an expression that seemed to say, "Am I very powerful? Hurry up and praise me." Yi Shiwen couldn't help but look at Ling Fei. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, the wolf cub had a fearless temperament. So, only Ling Fei could deal with it apart from Yi Shiwen. "Well, you're the most powerful." Yi Shiwen couldn't help but say, "Humph, do you think I'm a child?" Ling Fei pretended to be disdainful as she said. However, she couldn't hide the proud expression on her small face. This was one of the things she was most proud of. "Well, this isn't a place to stay for long. Let's leave first. We'll return to the transforming god abyss first." Yi Shiwen said. The dragon concealment was Yi Shiwen's subordinate. So, he would naturally follow Yi Shiwen wherever he went. He looked at Ling Fei. "I'll certainly follow you. Don't think of leaving me behind." Chapter 2293. No matter how unwilling they were, the weapon Emperor Heaven had been sealed again. The roars of the major forces could travel very far into the universe, but they could not change the reality this time. The ancient weapon city, which was originally bustling with noise, quickly regained its peace. The people of the major forces did not delay and quickly left. Yi Shiwen also followed the Hidden Valley team and returned to the deification abyss. Although he was anxious to solve the problem of Tao validation, he had not broken through to that point yet. There were still many loose ends in the deification abyss for him to solve. After he returned, he first went to see the Master of Flames. However, it was only a clone of the Master of Flames. It was only then that he found out that the real Master of Flames had been in seclusion for more than 10,000 years. He only left a clone behind to deal with the various matters in the deification abyss. Even so, ordinary people did not have the opportunity to see the Flame Lord. It was just that Yi Shiwen was too special. You have Tao validation? No, there's still flaws. You should not have completely Tao validation. The Flame Lord's eyes were like torches. He almost saw through the obvious flaws in Yi Shiwen's Tao validation at a glance. It did not look like Tao validation. "Your eyes are like torches." "That's right," Yi Shiwen said. "Your situation is strange." The Flame Lord frowned as if he was calculating something. "For you to be like this, it should be because you cannot cut off the past. There must be some knot in your heart that cannot be untied. This matter is not easy. It depends on you." Yi Shiwen nodded. No one could help him in this matter. "But this time, I asked you to come mainly to understand the situation in the Weapon Emperor Heaven. How much do you know?" The Flame Lord's eyes were as sharp as knives as he stared at Yi Shiwen. "They all left in advance, so they do not know. And you should have participated in the battle for the treasure house. There is no news at all?" Thousands of calculations flashed through Yi Shiwen's mind, and he immediately knew how to answer. He said some things that he could say, but he didn't say that he already knew this matter in advance. Otherwise, he would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. Even the Flame Sovereign wouldn't be able to protect him. After all, this matter was too big. Dozens of old antiques were killed in one go. Although they were all old antiques, they could still be considered as the core powers of the various branches of the Hidden Valley. So that's how it is. No wonder the Equipment Emperor Heaven actually joined forces this time. So it turns out that it's for the sake of the profundity staff. The Master of Flames sighed and finally understood the reason. If it's because of the Wonder Staff, then it's understandable. If the Wonder Staff is in the deification abyss, we, the Hidden Valley, will never allow the Wonder Staff to be lost even if we have to fall out with the other forces. Fortunately, the people of the Equipment Emperor Heaven didn't obtain the Wonder Staff. Otherwise, it would only be a matter of time before they broke through the Equipment Emperor's restriction. He didn't lament for too long, but said to Yi Shiwen, "Anyway, you have made a great contribution this time. I have already investigated the specific details. There should be a position for you in the second region, and the rewards will be issued later." "Thank you, Your Honor." Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said, "However, let me ask you something. Have you ever thought of taking in a few disciples?" The Master of Flames asked. "Disciples?" Yi Shiwen was a little dumbfounded. He was stunned for a moment, as if he couldn't react. "Yes, although you can't be considered a complete Dao validation. Ordinary Dao validation experts are no longer a match for you. It can be said that you are already in the upper echelons of the deification abyss. There should be a divine seat for you in the Pantheon Palace. Naturally, it's different from before. For a force, the most important thing is talent and inheritance. I don't think I need to say much. You should also understand." The Master of Flames looked at Yi Shiwen, and his meaning was already very clear. "Of course, you don't have to do this, and it won't affect your usual cultivation. After all, you only need to create a clone. I think what you have learned is quite impressive, so naturally, it's time to find a successor." Speaking of disciples, it wasn't that he didn't have any. Leah was his first and only disciple. However, the Master of Flames' words were not unreasonable. Even if he didn't cultivate talents for the deification abyss, he still had to pass on what he had learned, right? It was just that he had always thought that this matter was very far away from him. Suddenly, it was already right in front of him, so he couldn't recover for a while. "Your Honor is right. I will take note," said Yi Shiwen. He naturally understood what the Master of Flames meant. The Master of Flames probably had a candidate to recommend to him, but he wasn't someone who would agree casually. The matter of accepting a disciple was very important, and he had to be very careful. If that's the case, then it's fine. The Master of Flames didn't force it and only sighed. Some people's plans were ruined. Yi Shiwen had already proven his Tao at a young age, and it could be said that his future was limitless. In the future, he was expected to enter the Eternal Realm or even the Higher Sage Realm. In the Hidden Valley, not only were there many people who wanted to rope in Yi Shiwen, but there were also many people who wanted their outstanding juniors to become Yi Shiwen's disciples. If they could learn all of his skills, their future would naturally be limitless. This was also a method to befriend Yi Shiwen, but it was obvious that Yi Shiwen in front of him was not someone who would be easily moved. "Your Honor, in the near future, I may leave the deification abyss for a period of time," said Yi Shiwen. The Master of Flames also knew what Yi Shiwen was talking about, so he didn't say much and just nodded in agreement. After bidding farewell to the Master of Flames, Yi Shiwen directly returned to the Blood Prison to settle the matters of the Sky-Bearing Castle. However, when he returned to the Blood Prison, he discovered that the Sky-Bearing Castle had actually been destroyed, and the formation that he had left behind previously had also been broken. In front of Yi Shiwen and the other two, it was a mess, and the flames of war were everywhere. It was already in ruins. How is this possible? Yi Shiwen was furious. He had never expected that the Sky-Bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle would be completely destroyed. He had once left behind the Ghost Heartfire formation, and even ordinary immortal-level experts could not break through the Ghost Heartfire formation. "Castle Master! Castle Master!" Suddenly, a miserable voice was heard, and a person with disheveled hair and a dirty face flew over and knelt in front of Yi Shiwen. "What happened?" Yi Shiwen shouted in a stern voice. He remembered that this person was an elder of the Sky-Bearing Castle, and he looked completely miserable at this moment. "Castle Master, not long after you left, the Lord of Victoria's Sun City personally came out and led the army that he had nurtured and broke through our 2 fortresses. Castle Master, we are so miserable. You have to take revenge for us." At this moment, This person was screaming miserably. What, it's really them? Yi Shiwen's eyes widened in anger. He did not expect that even with all his precautions, he still failed in the end. Before he left, he had already taken many precautions, but he still failed in the end. Yi Shiwen, is there something fun again? Ling Fei raised her eyebrows and said, It seems like there's no way to avoid it. Yi Shiwen said with a gloomy face, Tell me, what was the situation at that time? The situation at that time was, go to hell? This elder suddenly screamed, and he was completely hysterical. He clawed towards Yi Shiwen's chest, and the terrifying power made the void resound with a strange and mournful laughter. Bang! This claw clawed on Yi Shiwen's chest. However, the bloody scene that he had imagined didn't happen. This claw didn't even scratch Yi Shiwen's chest. Ka ka ka! Ah! This elder suddenly screamed, and his entire arm was completely engulfed by the flames. How is this possible? How is this possible? That elder looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. He couldn't believe that his claw didn't have any effect. The power in this claw has even reached the Tao confirming level. It seems that it shouldn't be your own power, right? Is it the Lord of Victorious Sun City? Yi Shiwen remained motionless, and his facial expression didn't even change. Impossible. This claw has been firmly grasped. Even a Tao confirming expert will die tragically. How can you be fine? This elder still couldn't believe it. Idiot! Yi Shiwen's expression became increasingly cold, and he felt a slight lingering fear in his heart. If it was 10 years ago, Yi Shiwen would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die from this move. It seemed that they had completely planned to deal with him. However, they would never have imagined that his cultivation and strength had undergone earth-shaking changes in the past 10 years. Therefore, the method that they had decided a few years ago was useless against him now. You want to plot against me? You're still far from it. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, I'm very sensitive to murderous aura. I found that there was something wrong with you from the beginning. I just wanted to ask a little more. Otherwise, I would have smashed your head with a slap. Tell me, what else did the Lord of Victorious Sun City prepare for me? Castle Lord, please spare my life. Castle Lord, please spare my life. This elder kept kowtowing, and the ground cracked. If you don't tell me, I'll do it myself. Yi Shiwen directly grabbed this elder, extracted his memory, and used the soul-searching technique to search his memory. After a while, he had already understood everything and slapped this elder to death. For Yi Shiwen, betrayal was absolutely unforgivable. Yi Shiwen's strength was far superior to this elder. It was not difficult for him to inspect the elder's memory. Soon, he understood what had happened. Just 3 years ago, the Lord of Victorious Sun City came out of closed-door training. He led his troops and breached 2 fortresses. He captured all the people in the fortresses and imprisoned them in cages outside Victorious Sun City to warn others. And this elder was also a backup plan that the Lord of Victorious Sun City had arranged a few years ago. He had waited for Yi Shiwen to return, and then he would be able to kill him directly. It could be said that he had calculated everything. The only thing that he had missed was that Yi Shiwen's strength had undergone earth-shaking changes in such a short time. Let's go to Victorious Sun City. Chapter 2294. Shenyang City, as a huge city with a deity presiding over it, had an area of 1,000 miles. Countless living beings came and went. Above the city gate tower, there were over 1,000 cages hanging on the city wall. They were all restricted by many restrictions. Inside the cages, all kinds of creatures showed their original forms. They were constantly roaring in pain, but they could not struggle. Their scapulae were locked by the god's rule chains. Their blood essence would be continuously extracted along the god's rule chains to replenish the energy consumed by the formation of Shenyang City. Their anguished wails continued day and night, piercing through the horizon. This was the most terrifying punishment. They couldn't even die. They could only contribute their own essence blood for all eternity, until they knew they were dead. Who were these people? They were actually captured and tortured like this. It's simply worse than death. An outsider asked, not understanding what was going on. You must be new here. You don't even know this. These people are from the sky-bearing castle and the flying cloud castle. However, their castle masters offended our group leader, so they have to suffer here day and night. Someone explained. The outsider couldn't help but gasp. The city lord of Xinyang City was undoubtedly a deity. However, the castle masters of the flying cloud castle and the sky-bearing castle were also considered top-notch figures. For them, a deity-level figure was no different from a celestial being in heaven. It was like an ordinary person offending a big shot of the Central Political Bureau. This was the feeling, not to mention whether or not to offend someone of that level. Even if one wanted to offend someone of that level, one would have to have the opportunity to do so. Would it be easy to offend a big shot of that level? What exactly did their city lord do to incur the wrath of the heavens? The outsider asked. Ordinary matters would not be able to disturb the existence of the doctrine-proving realm. He killed the most beloved son of the city lord of Xinyang City. The outsider suddenly understood. No wonder the city lord of Xinyang City was furious. Ordinary matters would not be able to shake a powerful existence like the city lord. Suddenly, while everyone was still discussing, an extremely huge and terrifying sword radiance fell from the sky and instantly slashed across the city wall. Rumble! There was a violent explosion as the sword light slashed across the city wall. The wall, which was thousands of feet tall, was cut off by hundreds of feet. The part that was cut off also slowly slid down to the ground amidst the cries of alarm, raising a lot of dust. The thousands of cages also fell down, smashing into the ground one after another. Bang! 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 The cages that weighed tens of thousands of kilograms exploded with loud noises. These people, who had been tormented by pain for several years and were already numb to it, finally came to their senses at this moment. Something big had happened, something they had never expected. Amidst the exclamations and clamor, a slender figure slowly walked over from the main road. It seemed slow, but it was actually fast. Not long after, it had already arrived at the city gate. At this time, the city gate was already in a mess. No one thought that someone would dare to cause trouble in this city guarded by a deity. At this moment, a group of patrolling soldiers appeared at the city gate. They had just recovered from the shock just now. Every one of them was different. They all had brilliant horns on their heads. It seemed that every one of them was a very powerful alien race. Every one of them had crawled out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Now, they had become patrolling soldiers. The foundation of Xinyang City could be seen from this. Without any superfluous words, the captain of the patrolling soldiers launched an attack on Yi Shiwen. This person came with ill intentions. He could distinguish Yi Shiwen's hostility. Moreover, with their domineering attitude, they killed the wrong person. What else could they do? This attack fell on Yi Shiwen's body, but it could not shake him at all. It could not even make his expression change slightly. Be careful. This person is extraordinary. The voice of the captain of the 8th level of Pawang realm had not yet faded when he saw a long sword appear in Yi Shiwen's hand. It cut through the void, and a terrifying sword key directly swept out and fell on the captain's body. Poochie! Blood splattered out. The blood spurted far away. Yi Shiwen cut off his neck on the spot. He died immediately. Inform the higher-ups. In the face of Yi Shiwen's terror, none of these people showed fear. They even shouted loudly to attract other companions. Clang! Yi Shiwen's long sword shot out in all directions. It was as if the sword had drawn out a Milky Way, suppressing all directions. Poochie! 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 These people, in an instant, all turned into flying ash. They turned into blood foam and floated in the air. The blazing light covered half of the sky, causing countless people at the city gate to be completely shocked. The blood was exceptionally dazzling in this blazing light. When it landed on the weeds on the side of the road, a bloody aura filled the air, causing it to look extraordinary. This person, who was this person? Everyone was stunned and dumbfounded. He was too powerful. In the outside world, a demigod expert was enough to rule over a small world. Moreover, this group of patrolling soldiers were all demigods, but they had been instantly killed by his sword. There had been no hesitation at all. It had been a clean and efficient kill. The blood seemed to have awakened these people who were locked in the cage. When they saw the person in front of them, they suddenly had a look of disbelief on their faces. "Castle Lord, it's the Castle Lord. I'm not dreaming, right? It's the Castle Lord." More and more voices woke up. It was as if they had woken up from a long nightmare. This nightmare had lasted for several years, and they were finally waking up. Their voices were hoarse and dry, as if they had never spoken in their lives. "Sorry, I'm late." Yishuan's voice was a little gloomy. These people did not surrender. They were loyal to him. No matter why they did not surrender or did not have the opportunity to surrender, it was not important to him. Whoosh! A sword light flashed, and an unknown metal cage was chopped into powder. In front of Yishuan, this cage was as ridiculous as a piece of paper. The complexions of many people in the distance froze. The person in front of them was like a devil. The demigods were as funny as clowns in his eyes. These demigods had gone through the baptism of blood. They had outstanding military exploits. But now they had been cut down like weeds. Some people had been talking wantonly a moment ago. But now, it seemed as if they had been grabbed by the neck. They were speechless and kept quiet out of fear. No one dared to be disrespectful. At this time, many people suddenly remembered what these prisoners had called this person a moment ago. Castle Lord? Could this person be the legendary person who had offended the Xinjiang City Lord and had destroyed 2 fortresses in a fit of anger? This person could be regarded as a legendary figure. The Xinjiang City Lord had not been dispatched for many years. But now, he had broken his rule because of this person. One could imagine that this person was not someone they could casually provoke. Bang! 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 The sword in Yishuan's hand had already been brandished, leaving afterimages. A loud sound was heard as these cages were smashed one after another. However, these people from the Flying Cloud Castle and the Sky-Bearing Castle had been imprisoned for too long. A lot of their blood essence had been sucked out. They didn't even have the strength to crawl up. Quick! Yishuan pinched a technique. A faintly discernible cry of a phoenix resounded in his body. A golden light soared into the sky. Then, it turned into a golden rain that sprinkled down from the sky. Then, what surprised everyone was that these people, who had been tortured to the point that they were half dead, were actually recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. These people suddenly discovered that their injuries had actually healed. In fact, they were recovering at an astonishing speed. They couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. We've actually recovered?" They looked at each other in dismay. They couldn't believe it. All of this was like a dream. The torture of these past few years was just a dream. They didn't have a single wound left on them. In fact, they even faintly felt that they had become stronger. "Castle Lord." Subordinate Jin Buhuan greets the Castle Lord. A figure tumbled and crawled to Yishuan's side. It was Jin Buhuan. At this time, although Jin Buhuan had been healed by Yishuan, he still looked very embarrassed. Tears streamed down his face. He thought that he would never see Yishuan again. He didn't expect that he would be able to hold on until Yishuan returned. He was the one with the toughest bones this time. He believed that Yishuan would return sooner or later. Such an outstanding person was definitely not someone to be trifled with. In the future, he wouldn't be inferior to the Xinjiang City Lord. If Yishuan returned, he would see their betrayal. If they were chosen by a future god, it was almost a dead end for them. Subordinate is incompetent. The Flying Cloud Castle and the Sky-Bearing Castle were breached. Jin Buhuan gritted his teeth in hatred. Yishuan usually didn't manage things. The Flying Cloud Castle and the Sky-Bearing Castle were almost handed over to him to manage. Now that they were breached, he couldn't escape the blame. "It's nothing. This matter has nothing to do with you," said Yishuan. "Get up. Today, I'm here to seek justice. I want everyone to understand that my people aren't that easy to deal with." The scene was dead silent. Previously, when they were just captured, many people were discussing about the legendary Castle Lord. However, when they faced him in person, they could feel how terrifying the pressure was. The sword in Yishuan's hand was still dripping with blood. It looked extremely bloody. Shenyang City Lord, aren't you looking for me? Why aren't you coming out now? You don't need to send some small fries out. They are my opponents, said Yi Shiwen coldly. Yi Shiwen's tone was calm and natural. It showed that he was extremely confident. Umph. A junior dares to be presumptuous in front of me. Chapter 2295. A tall and stalwart figure emerged from the void. It was the aura of a deity, and it was incomparably heroic. You're just an old thief. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said calmly, if I can't even kill you, how can I be invincible? Everyone seemed to be frightened by Yi Shiwen's words and held their breath. They felt a suffocating pressure. They couldn't imagine that someone would dare to be so arrogant in the face of a deity. What was a deity? A deity was an eternal and immortal existence. They were incomparably tyrannical existences. Ordinary people even had to be careful when mentioning the name of a deity, because even if an ordinary person mentioned a deity at the ends of the earth, he would be able to sense it. This was the supreme power of a deity. Oof, I think you're too complacent. You're here today, and you still want to leave? Suddenly, two incomparably old figures appeared next to the Lord of Victoria's Sun City. It was unknown what race they were from, but their bodies exuded a kind of heart-palpitating aura. This kind of aura made people feel suffocated and even difficult to breathe. This kind of aura even made ordinary people feel a kind of divine coercion. In particular, Jin Buhuan's expression suddenly changed. This was because he remembered very clearly that after the outermost layer of the formation that Yi Shiwen had left behind had been broken, these two old fellows had easily destroyed the defensive formations of the Sky Fortress and the Flying Cloud Fortress. This method was almost comparable to that of a deity, and it possessed a terrifying power that ordinary people could not imagine. Castle Lord, be careful. These two old guys are not easy to deal with, he quickly reminded. At this time, Yi Shiwen was their only savior, so they had to be careful. Yi Shiwen raised the corner of his mouth. He could see through the cultivation of these two old guys at a glance. They were actually comparable to the existence of Dao confirmation. The Lord of Victoria's Sun City could actually recruit experts of this level. Obviously, his methods were extraordinary, and he was indeed not an ordinary person. I couldn't kill you before, but now I can make up for that regret and kill you, the two old guys said coldly. Those who dare to provoke our Victoria's Sun City are basically like this. Have we been sleeping for too long that you newcomers dare to provoke the dignity of Victoria's Sun City? Whoosh! These two old bastards rushed forward with earth-shattering might. They wanted to cripple Yi Shiwen in one go. Their bodies swelled up like two prehistoric monsters. They were incomparably terrifying. Their entire bodies were covered in purple scales that emitted a strange radiance under the sunlight. These two incomparably terrifying divinities almost traversed the void with their physical bodies. Although they were old, their combat power was outstanding. Coupled with their experience, they were not the slightest bit weaker than when they were at their peak. With just the two of you? Scram! Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and golden divine power seeped out from the gaps of his fingers. Then he blasted it out in an instant. His golden vitality blotted out the sky and covered the earth. The human Tao fist blasted out with boundless ferocity. It directly transformed into an incomparably terrifying human Tao world that pressed down. Before the power of such a fist, all resistance seemed so childish, so weak that they couldn't even withstand a single blow. Bang! Yi Shiwen blasted on the bodies of these two people. All the attacks of these two people were instantly crushed under the suppression of the human Tao world that Yi Shiwen blasted out. Then, the human Tao world pressed down on their bodies. Puff! Puff! Both of them spurted out a mouthful of almost pure golden blood. Then, their bodies were sent flying upside down. All the bones in their bodies had been shattered by Yi Shiwen's punch. Their bodies had disintegrated in the void, and their blood mist had turned into mist and drifted away. One punch. Just one punch. These two old bastards who were comparable to Tao validation were killed by Yi Shiwen without any ability to resist. Even Yi Shiwen's bottom line was not tested. He just couldn't help but sneer. Although the combat power of these two old bastards was comparable to Tao validation, they had obviously passed their peak and entered the Angel Decay Stage 5. Their combat power was much worse than when they were at their peak. In the Tool Emperor Heaven, all the people he encountered were stronger than these two old bastards. Even Broken Dragon Wuming was far above these two old bastards. He was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. Among the experts who were comparable to Tao validation, these two old bastards were basically at the bottom. Compared to Yi Shiwen, who was in the prime of his life, wasn't it courting death? As the saying goes, the fist is afraid of the young and strong. Golden divine power surged out from his body, and the divine coercion swept out. Yi Shiwen walked towards the city lord of Xingyang City step by step. He has also reached Tao validation? Someone exclaimed in a trembling voice. Tao validation and non-Tao validation were two complete extremes and had two completely different statuses. Even if they were comparable to Tao validation and their combat power was no less than Tao validation experts, their status was completely different from Tao validation experts. In the Hidden Valley, Tao validation experts were high-level personnel, while non-Tao validation experts were comparable to Tao validation experts. At most, they were middle-level personnel. The difference in status between them was like heaven and earth. Therefore, many people exclaimed, if Yi Shiwen was also a god, then the situation would be completely different. Gods, this was a war of gods. It was not a legendary war of gods that they could get involved in. The most surprised were the many experts of the Sky-Bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle. Their castle lord had become stronger. He had actually reached Tao validation. They were the most clear about Yi Shiwen's background. He was just a newcomer who had just entered the deity transformation abyss for a few decades. He had actually reached Tao validation. What kind of situation was this? But then there was a burst of ecstasy. The future of following a peak demigod and following a Tao validation castle lord was completely different. Gods existed for eternity. As long as they didn't die, their sky-bearing fortress and flying cloud fortress would be able to exist for eternity. Their status in the blood prison was completely different. They might have the opportunity to enter Tao validation. They had a reason to be completely excited. I didn't expect you to have reached Tao validation. Sure enough, you have released the tiger back to the mountain. The Lord of Victorious Sun City squinted his eyes and said with overflowing killing intent. I said, don't send some minions out. For me, they are useless. Yi Shiwen said coldly, approaching step by step. They're just too trash. So what if they're dead? The Lord of Victorious Sun City said indifferently. His heart was as cold as stone. The death of two extremely important subordinates did not move him at all. I don't care at all that these two trash are dead. When the time comes, as long as you are controlled by me, you can match 10 of such trash. The Lord of Victorious Sun City said slowly. His idea was to take Yi Shiwen under his command. As long as he had such a battle general in his hands, he could match 10 of such trash. As for Yi Shiwen not being convinced, he would beat him until he was convinced. What else could he do? How cold? Yi Shiwen said with narrowed eyes. Obviously, the Lord of Victorious Sun City's coldness was far beyond his imagination. Was a heart of stone a necessary condition for achieving great things? Yi Shiwen did not think so. If you want to control me, then let's see if you have the ability to do so. Humph, then come and try. The city lord of Victorious Sun City finally made his move. Above his head, an incomparably huge city was floating up and down. Judging from its appearance, wasn't it the current Victorious Sun City? He had actually refined the Victorious Sun City into an instrument, using the power of countless people to suppress his opponent. He was indeed a very difficult fellow to deal with. One by one, the power of the mortal world fell down and protected him. Boom! The complexion of the Lord of Xingyang City was cold and callous. He didn't want to talk nonsense with Yi Shiwen. He directly blasted a punch, and the fist lights flickered, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. It was deafening, and layer after layer, just like the endless waves of the sea. It gave people a terrible feeling of death. The powerful fist force blotted out the sky and the earth. This fist force turned into bursts of signs of the Great Way, inscribed with the traces of the Great Way. The fluctuations were like a great river blotting out the sky and the earth. Everyone felt a kind of horrifying pressure falling down from the sky and the earth. They could not help but feel incomparably terrified. In an instant, it made people feel like kneeling down. This was the coercion that belonged to the gods. People who had not yet entered the Tao-confirming realm would inevitably feel inferior when facing the real masters of the gods. In the face of such a terrifying attack, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. The faint shadow of the enlightening mind ancient tree emerged behind him. It looked solemn and dignified. He pinched a seal with both hands, which directly turned into the overturning the sky seal and smashed down. As soon as the overturning the sky seal moved, the world seemed to turn upside down. The earth quaked, and the mountains swayed. This was also in existence with the means of a deity. Compared to the city lord of Xinjiang City, this was in no way inferior. Under the confrontation of these two powerful experts, everyone clearly felt an unimaginable pressure sweeping down, and even the void was shattered. They had no choice but to kneel down and use all their strength to resist the coercion of both sides. Bang! The two sides collided together. The world shook. With the place where the two of them fought as the core, an unimaginable coercion spread out. The spiritual energy billowed, and the spiritual power was monstrous. It ran through the 9 heavens. The two sides fought, and the sky fell and the earth cracked. Roar! A bit of horror flashed in the eyes of the Lord of Victorious Sun City. He could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. He immediately let out a long roar. Behind him, the Victorious Sun City faintly emerged. He wanted to use the accumulated power of the mortal world of the Victorious Sun City to deal with his opponent. Yi Shiwen was not to be outdone. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. Divine power surged out from the gaps of his fingers and turned into the power of the mortal world. It instantly condensed into a city of the human race. This city was incomparably huge. It was even bigger than a world. It went toe-to-toe with the Victorious Sun City above the head of the Lord of Victorious Sun City. Rumble! There was a violent collision. Chapter 2296. Rumble! There was a fierce collision. The two cities collided in the void, as if it was the end of the world. If it was not the end of the world, how could the two cities collide? The powerful strength of the Xinjiang city governor, who had reached the advanced immortal level, was fully displayed at this moment. Yi Shiwen finally understood why the Ghost Heart Fire formation that he had set up could be broken. It was because the Ghost Heart Fire formation that he had set up could only deal with ordinary Dao validation experts at most. However, the Xinjiang city governor had obviously surpassed the ranks of ordinary Dao validation experts. An expert in the advanced immortal level could naturally break his Ghost Heart Fire formation. He had never expected the Xinjiang city governor to be so powerful because there was no information at all. Although the Sky-Bearing Fortress and the Flying Cloud Fortress had some information about the Xinjiang city, the Xinjiang city governor had obviously surpassed the ranks of ordinary Dao validation experts. However, to a demigod, the strength of a god was almost the same. There was no way to find out how strong the city lord of Victorious Sun City had become. This was also the biggest oversight in his plan, which led to the situation today. However, in the face of powerful strength, even the best plan was useless. It was useless even if he had stayed at that time. If it were not for the continuous adventures in the Equipment Royal Heaven, it was absolutely impossible for him to defeat the Xinjiang city governor. Rumble! Yi Shiwen's cultivation level was obviously higher. His world had directly crushed the Xinjiang city. The Xinjiang city governor became even more ferocious after the first move failed. He looked up to the sky and roared even more fiercely. He attacked Yi Shiwen with another punch. The endless power of the mortal world could even distort time. To a certain extent, this move was similar to the human Dao fist. It could even be said that the essence and core were similar. However, compared to the human Dao fist, the Xinjiang city governor's unique skill was undoubtedly much weaker. The Shenyang city governor's entire body was filled with a kind of dazzling light. The light soared into the sky and went up tens of thousands of feet. This punch was extremely tyrannical. It carried the power of the mortal world, formed by the thoughts of countless people, and moved forward with indomitable will. Yi Shiwen did not give in. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and the golden fist force rushed out. He did not dodge and directly went forward. Rumble! It was another earth-shattering collision. The powerful force formed an incomparably terrifying spatial storm, shredding everything into fragments. With the location where the two of them fought as the center, the spatial storm swept out in all directions. Everyone retreated, not daring to get close. The defense of Shenyang City was automatically activated. The destructive power of this level had exceeded the limit of what it could withstand, so it had to automatically activate the defense array. Such a terrifying combat power made everyone gasp involuntarily. Puff! A large amount of blood mixed in the energy storm and sprinkled out. Some of it even splashed onto Zhong Ruigan's face. Everyone couldn't help but take a closer look. They saw that the city lord of Victoria's Sun City's face was deathly pale, and his whole body was convulsing. His entire arm hung limply, as if he had suffered a heavy blow. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. It was obvious that this blow had already determined the outcome of the battle. The city lord of Victoria's Sun City, who had been favored by everyone, was now at a complete disadvantage. In fact, he was at a complete disadvantage in terms of physical strength. This far exceeded everyone's expectations. Even the craziest person would not have thought that such a situation would occur. Just what kind of physique did this person have? How could he be so tyrannical? In their opinion, there was no difference in strength between divine shells. The only difference was that they were born in their mother's bodies. Yi Shiwen's physique became the focus of everyone's investigation. Many people had already seen that Yi Shiwen was a rare member of the human race in the deity transformation abyss. The human race was one of the most famous races in the universe. No one knew how many terrifying physiques they had, but it seemed that none of them could compare to Yi Shiwen's physique. He had never even heard of it before. However, the city lord of Victoria's Sun City was inexplicably shocked compared to them. After all, they weren't clear about it. However, how could he not be clear about it? Yi Shiwen's realm was at most at the Dao confirmation realm. However, his strength was ridiculously strong. At the beginning of the immortal level, he was able to destroy his arm with just one punch. What was his body made of? Was it really made of molten iron? His subconscious gave birth to a sense of danger. Yi Shiwen was merciless. Almost in an instant, he rushed forward again. He turned his hand, and another overturning sky seal was formed. Like a golden cliff, it slammed down with earth-shattering power. Bang! A dull thunder-like collision sound was heard. Yi Shiwen and the city lord of Victoria's Sun City collided again. This time, the city lord of Victoria's Sun City didn't dare to be careless anymore. He didn't dare to fight with Yi Shiwen with only his physical strength. He could only crush Yi Shiwen with his powerful strength. This was his biggest advantage. He had no reason to ignore this advantage. Moreover, he had been beaten by Yi Shiwen. He had suffered enough. He didn't even allow Yi Shiwen to get close to him. In other words, he didn't dare to fight with Yi Shiwen in close combat anymore. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen's offensive momentum swept down like an avalanche. It shook the mountains and rivers. Countless golden divine powers swept out and smashed everything. The city lord of Victoria's Sun City was defeated again and again. Roar! The lord of Victoria's Sun City let out a long and loud shout. His body's injuries had already recovered to their original state. His hand that had been crippled by Yi Shiwen had also been restored to its original state. Yi Shiwen, what can you do to me? The city lord of Victoria's Sun City laughed proudly. He didn't know when it started. For the city lord of Victoria's Sun City, even if Yi Shiwen couldn't do anything to him, it was already a very proud thing. So what if it's recovered? Watch me beat him up again. Yi Shiwen didn't care. His chi and blood were surging like thunder. The sound of waves was heard. His offensive formed a burst of violent waves, bombarding towards Yi Shiwen. The city lord of Victoria's Sun City was completely at a disadvantage. Suddenly, there was a burst of golden light on his body. Then, the shouts of countless people in the city of Victoria's Sun City above his head were exposed. The terrifying sound was that it made people dizzy. This was his secret weapon. It could make people collapse with the mortal chi. Even an ordinary Tao-confirming expert might be finished on the spot if he was hit by this mortal chi. Gods could look down on all living beings. But when the power of all living beings gathered together, even gods could only face a dead end. However, this shock wave rushed into Yi Shiwen's mind and was instantly fixed by the Mingxin ancient tree. It couldn't affect Yi Shiwen's mind at all. Yi Shiwen shouted, "Get out of my way!" His big hand directly tore the divine claw of judgment. In an instant, all the power of the mortal chi was smashed. It couldn't affect him at all. Then, he directly bombarded towards the city lord of Victoria's Sun City. Above the Xinjiang city, the evil aura of the mortal world was released, impacting thousands of sound waves, and then the entire city began to spin. Then, these evil auras of the mortal world instantly turned into a torrent, like the sword chi of the mortal world, directly slashing towards Yi Shiwen. Although the city lord of Victoria's Sun City was at a disadvantage, he also had many trump cards. It was absolutely impossible for him to be captured without putting up a fight. If an ordinary person encountered these kinds of tricks, they would probably suffer a great loss. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care. He directly ignored the mortal chi. Wasn't it stupid to want to attack his mind? Behind him, the enlightening mind ancient tree instantly flew out, and then suppressed him. All the evil energies of the mortal world couldn't affect Yi Shiwen in the slightest. The vast ocean-like evil energies of the mortal world were instantly suppressed. The lord of Xinjiang City turned pale with fright. This was obviously an unimaginable divine object. Even with his knowledge and experience, he immediately recognized it. This was actually the enlightening mind ancient tree. This kind of divine object, even for him, was a legendary thing. And this Yi Shi actually possessed an enlightening mind ancient tree. Bang! Yi Shiwen's overturning sky seal directly hit the body of the city lord of Victoria's Sun City. The city lord of Victoria's Sun City screamed. His whole body trembled on the spot. It was unknown how many bones in his body were broken. He spat out a mouthful of golden blood. Each drop was as heavy as 1,000 caddies, and each drop could form a large lake. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body was fiercely blasted out and directly crashed into a distant mountain peak. He constantly struggled to get up and constantly operated his martial power to repair his divine shell. The city lord of Victoria's Sun City, which he had painstakingly condensed for countless years, had been completely defeated by Yi Shiwen. The mortal chi was the foundation of the city lord of Victoria's Sun City, and now it was completely defeated. The purpose of building the city lord of Victoria's Sun City was actually to collect this mortal chi. The power of the mortal world not only contained the power of the mortal world, but also the wishes of all living beings. It also included the mortal chi. All the negative thoughts of all living beings were all concentrated in it. It was even more advantageous to use it to attack. As long as the city lord of Victoria's Sun City was not destroyed, he could continuously obtain the mortal chi, and thus be in an invincible position. Who would have thought that it would be so easily defeated by Yi Shiwen? Moreover, it could no longer condense again. From this, it could be seen that although his magical power was somewhat similar to the People Dao Fist, but in essence, it was still far inferior to the People Dao Fist. Countless creatures in the city lord of Victoria's Sun City suddenly turned pale. They were also affected and spat out a mouthful of blood. Their mortal chi had been used by the city lord of Victoria's Sun City. At this time, they were naturally implicated and suffered serious injuries. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and chased after the city lord of Victoria's Sun City. His golden vitality pervaded the world. It was so powerful that it almost made people unable to breathe. No matter how far they stood, they could feel a powerful aura. Boom! Yi Shiwen's hand broke the sky. The overturning sky seal fell down, and the city lord of victorious Sun City died on the spot. Chapter 2297. Once Dao validation was achieved, everything was in his hands. The Shenyang City Lord's strength was extremely strong, but Yi Shiwen's strength was also stronger than his. Yi Shiwen was strong enough to defeat all the masters in the late stage of the immortality realm. Throughout the entire battle, Yi Shiwen did not have the upper hand at all. The whole city was as silent as a cicada in winter. The fall of a deity could be said to be earth-shattering. Unlike those half-step Dao confirming existences, this was a true Dao confirming existence. Even if it was in the blood prison, the fall was still a big trouble. Yi Shiwen was steady, accurate, and ruthless. He did not give the slightest chance to escape. At the same time, hundreds of people in the city suddenly vomited blood and stopped leveling up at the same time. They were probably the contract slaves of the Shenyang City Lord. After the death of the Shenyang City Lord, they naturally had to die with him. With the death of the Shenyang City Lord, the entire Shenyang City would also change to a new master. In the blood prison, this was a very common thing. The law of the jungle was vividly reflected here. Yi Shiwen, who won, naturally became the new master of Shenyang City. After a short period of panic, the experts in Shenyang City had already accepted this fact. As for the most loyal supporters of the city lord of Shenyang City, they had either committed suicide or had been implicated by the city lord of Shenyang City. Even if there were survivors, it was not enough to pose a threat to a god. In front of a god, a demigod was too weak. Even the two demigods who were comparable to Dao validation could be killed by Yi Shiwen with just one punch. Any kind of resistance was meaningless in the face of real strength. The sudden death of the Shenyang City Lord had also attracted the attention and uneasiness of many gods in the nearby vast area. It was normal for the war between gods to last for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. On the contrary, it was abnormal for a god to die in such a short period of time because of a conflict. More importantly, this meant that Yi Shiwen already had the means to kill a god, which threatened the existence of these gods. This made the gods who had been stable for many years a little restless. Many stern questions were sent over. Although they didn't say much about the deceased lord of victorious Sun City, many gods sent notes expressing their serious concern. Yi Shiwen realized that there were so many gods in the blood prison after he had reached this level. This was because of the difference in levels. Originally, it wouldn't have been easy for him to come in contact with the gods with his demigod strength. Now that he had reached the Dao validation realm, everything was completely different. However, when one thought about it, it made sense. Gods were eternal and indestructible. Unless they encountered such unlucky times, they would be able to exist for eternity. Under such circumstances, no one would know how many gods had accumulated over the years. However, these gods did not usually appear, so not many people knew about them. In many worlds, gods had become a kind of teaching. Yi Shiwen rejected all these inquiries. He was too lazy to negotiate with these gods. He was not in the mood either. He directly asked the hidden dragon to come over and preside over the matters of entering Shenyang City. Although the hidden dragon's strength was not as good as Yi Shiwen's, it was not inferior to the lord of victorious Sun City. It was naturally the best for him to preside over Shenyang City. In addition, he originally ruled a tribe. Therefore, this kind of thing was simply a piece of cake for him. With the hidden dragon presiding over and dispatching all parties to suppress the trusted aides of the lord of victorious Sun City, victorious Sun City was easily brought under Yi Shiwen's control and slowly stabilized. Yi Shiwen also maintained restraint after taking control of the Shenyang City. He didn't expand his territory. Therefore, those gods who had expressed their concern about this matter also withdrew their gazes one after another. If a god had fallen outside, then it would have caused a sensation. Moreover, it was a big shot like the lord of Shenyang City. The resources needed to cultivate a god were simply astronomical figures. It was unimaginable. Moreover, it was not something that could be achieved with just resources. Many top geniuses consumed countless resources. Coupled with their innate talents, They cultivated to the peak of demigod in a short period of time. However, they were stuck there and could not make any progress for the rest of their lives. Such a thing was too common. The gods were immortal. Therefore, they were the true backbone forces that maintained the inheritance of a sect. Losing one of them would hurt the sect's vitality. However, it was different in the blood prison. There was no order in this place. It was open for the purpose of exiling criminals and honing talents. Anything that happened here was considered normal. Yi Shiwen knew that it was impossible for the victorious Sun City to be alone. Perhaps there were also factions behind it. There were all kinds of complicated relationships in the Hidden Valley, so it was difficult to sort them out in a short time. He knew that the Hidden Valley was divided into 7 branches as far as he knew. It was said that the Hidden Valley was founded by 7 king-level powerhouses, and the inheritance they passed down was the largest branch of the Hidden Valley. However, these were distant legends. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of years had passed since the establishment of the Hidden Valley. Many things had been covered by the dust of history. The 7 legendary king-level powerhouses had never been seen again. Everyone knew that the Hidden Valley was currently the supreme ruler and manager of the god-transforming abyss. He was the Flame Lord. The Flame Lord had been in charge of many affairs in the Hidden Valley since tens of thousands of years ago. Therefore, many people believed that the so-called 7 king-level powerhouses did not exist. The actual master of the Hidden Valley was the Flame Lord. No one knew whether these rumors were true or false. Only the old monsters that had survived from that era could know whether they were true or false. Otherwise, no one would know whether they were true or false. Moreover, Yi Shiwen felt that his level was too low. Therefore, many things could only be regarded as rumors. He couldn't see through them. He faintly realized that he couldn't be as indifferent as he had been when he was still a demigod when he had started to prove his Tao. That was because he was still too weak at that time, so no one would pay attention to him at all. However, this matter wasn't his top priority at the moment. How to fulfill the wishes of his previous life and how to solve the loopholes in his Tao were the top priorities. A month later, when all the big and small matters in Xinjiang City had been handled properly, he left Hidden Dragon behind and returned to the Xian world with Ling Fei. In the Xian world, with the help of the experts from the Sky-Bearing Fortress and the Flying Cloud Fortress that Yi Shiwen had left behind, the human race had become the overlord of the Xian world. They dominated the Xian world with the power of a single race. However, Yi Shiwen's return did not alarm anyone in the Xian world. He only went to the Dead Soul Abyss. There hadn't been any Dead Soul frenzy in this place for a long time. It seemed to be controlled by some power. The outside was also wrapped by a layer of powerful barrier formation. There was no sign that it was going to appear. However, the more Yi Shiwen's cultivation increased, the more he could feel the terrifying power contained in it. This terrifying power should have come from the Lord of Dead Spirits. Yi Shiwen had only seen the Lord of Flame possessing such power apart from the Lord of Dead Spirits. Yi Qianqian hadn't completed the inheritance of the Dead Soul Lord. Yi Shiwen sighed. Now his old friends had fallen apart. Yi Mo and Hua Minghan's status was unknown. Yi Qianqian seemed to still be accepting the inheritance of the Dead Soul Lord and hadn't come out yet. The wolf cub also disappeared from time to time. However, he didn't feel melancholy for long. He left quietly just like how he came quietly. He directly set foot on the road to the Heaven Realm. He had been longing for this base camp of the human race in the myriad heavens for a long time. The importance of the Heaven Realm to the human race was similar to the importance of the Devil Realm to the demon race. In the past, Qin Lai had invited him several times. However, he didn't go at that time due to various reasons. This time, he had no choice but to go. He wanted to find the world of his previous life. Perhaps it had an important connection with the Heaven Realm. Although the Heaven Realm was far away, it wasn't difficult for him, who had already confirmed his Tao. Moreover, he could obtain the coordinates of the Heaven Realm from the Hidden Valley. This wasn't difficult for him at all. Yi Shiwen flew at full speed. He was shuttling between worlds. Ling Fei couldn't keep up with Yi Shiwen's speed. She could only hold his waist tightly. Then, she gritted her teeth and complained that Yi Shiwen was flying so fast. Was he rushing to reincarnate? Yi Shiwen didn't have the mood to enjoy the soft and warm fragrance in his arms. His desire for his hometown pushed him to fly towards the heaven realm. He flew at full speed for a month. Then, he finally touched the outline of the heaven realm. In the universe, it was an incomparably huge world of light. The light wheel that spread out was unknown how many light years away. It was very thick. The strong crystal wall isolated the possibility of other forces entering. However, it wasn't a big problem for someone as strong as Yi Shiwen to enter. Although it took him a lot of effort, he still broke into the heaven realm easily. Yi Shiwen had just broken into the heaven realm when he suddenly felt the surging power of the mortal world assaulting his face. It was repelling all foreign species. Fortunately, he was still a human, so he only felt a burst of suffocation. However, Ling Fei was in a miserable state. She was instantly hit hard by the power of the mortal world. This was the power of the world. The more powerful the world was, the more powerful the power of the world was. And the greater the repelling force of the outsiders. A world like the Tool Emperor Heaven's repelling force was terrifyingly strong. Moreover, the stronger one's strength was, the stronger the backlash would be. The heaven realm was the base camp of the human race among the 10,000 worlds in the heavens. Countless human races' power of hope was concentrated in the heaven realm. Ordinary people couldn't feel it. However, Yi Shiwen had entered through unconventional means, so he would naturally suffer a powerful backlash. He was a human, so he could endure the backlash. However, Ling Fei couldn't. She couldn't endure it even if she had already confirmed her Tao. She was hit hard in an instant. Yi Shiwen had no choice but to let her hide in the heavenly source mirror to recuperate. Then, he fell down alone. Chapter 2298. In the heaven realm dominated by the human race, the rejection of foreign species was particularly strong. However, Yi Shiwen did not flaunt it. In the heaven realm, there were many experts, perhaps even more than in the Hidden Valley. The first priority was to find Qin Lai. In the heaven realm, he only knew Qin Lai, and the only clue was Wu Zong. The heaven realm was densely populated. Yi Shiwen only walked for 100 miles before he saw a huge city. Kaidai City. Millions of people were nothing. Whether it was the Xian world or the desolate era, a bigger city could be found in minutes. However, above the city, there was a surging mortal world. Any demon that dared to approach here would be burned to death by the surging mortal world qi. Ordinary people could not see this surging mortal world qi, but for people like Yi Shiwen, even if he did not open his heaven's eye, he could still see it clearly. Yi Shiwen glanced around and saw that in Kaidai City, even the common people were proficient in martial arts. Even a 5- or 6-year-old child was at the peak of the Hodian realm. It was a flourishing era of martial arts. The Zhenwu Jie, where Yi Shiwen was, could not be compared to this place. Surprisingly, everyone learned martial arts, unlike the Zhenwu Jie, where only the outstanding people were taught martial arts. No wonder there were so many experts in the heaven realm. Generally speaking, the larger the base, the more experts would appear. Whether it was the ancient era or the Xian world, there was no such strong atmosphere. No wonder the secular qi was so powerful. To put it bluntly, the secular qi was composed of people's power of will and resentment. The stronger the body, the stronger the spirit, qi, and the stronger the power of will and resentment they emitted. Martial arts practitioners were far stronger than non-martial arts practitioners. When the whole city was filled with martial arts practitioners, the secular qi was like a cloud that covered the sky and protected the city from being invaded by external evils. And this was just the tip of the iceberg. The atmosphere of the heaven realm was indeed far better than that of the Xian world. "Young master, if you don't mind, can you come and sit with me?" Yi Shiwen was just about to enter the city, but he was stopped by a beggar who was sitting cross-legged at the foot of the city wall. He didn't care about it, but he glanced at this old man and suddenly became nervous. This beggar was dressed in greasy rags, his skin was loose, and his hair was white. He looked as if he hadn't eaten enough for many days. But what shocked him was that he couldn't see through this beggar. Even though he hadn't opened his Dharma eye, with his strength, He could see through anyone with a single glance. This beggar was not simple. Since Elder has invited me, I naturally wouldn't dare to refuse. Yishuan immediately smiled and walked over. Unexpectedly, he also imitated the beggar and sat down. On the other hand, the people going in and out of the city gate looked strangely at this luxuriously dressed young master. He was actually sharing a table with this beggar. "Where did you come from?" The old beggar grabbed a wine gourd out of thin air and took a sip. The aroma of wine filled the air. His bright eyes were staring at Yishuan. Yishuan immediately understood that the matter of him breaking into the heavenly realm had been noticed by someone. This old beggar was waiting for him here. "Junior Yishuan, how should I address Elder?" Yishuan asked. "I don't have a name. Others call me Old Beggar. You can call me that too. But are you Yishuan? I have heard of you," the old beggar said with a smile on his face. He grabbed a piece of roasted chicken out of nowhere and bit into it. There was wine and meat, so it was quite enjoyable. "I heard from Qin Lai, but I didn't expect that there would be a talented person in my human race outside of the heavenly realm." "So, Elder knows Qin Lai?" Yishuan asked in surprise. "This junior is here to find Qin Lai. Then why didn't you go the right way?" "I thought it was a demon invasion, so I hurried over." The old beggar stared at Yishuan and said, "Ha! Elder must be joking. The secular aura of the heavenly realm is so abundant. Any demon dares to spy on it. I'm afraid it will be a dead end if it is rushed by the secular aura," Yishuan said with a laugh. He was not speaking without a target. "Wasn't Ling Fei like this before?" "That's true. It's mainly because I'm afraid that there will be a fish that escapes the net. In recent years, the methods of these demons have been improving. I can't say anything." "Ha!" The old beggar laughed as he said, "If I didn't see that you are also a human race, I wouldn't talk to you so politely. I would capture you and interrogate you directly." "Thank you for your mercy, Elder," Yishuan said and cupped his hands. "You're not a good person. If you really fight, the sky will collapse and the earth will crack and everything will be destroyed." The old beggar said, "Since you are looking for Qin Lai, I will take you there. If you come earlier, I'm afraid you won't be able to see him. That kid has just come out of the closed-door training. It's just right for you to go there. You can also ask for a cup of wedding wine." "Qin Lai has confirmed his Tao?" Yishuan asked. "That's right. I didn't let you down." The old beggar glanced at Yishuan with a faint smile. "However, it seems that I am still a step slower than you. It's good to have Elder to lead the way." Yishuan didn't have any evil intentions, so he naturally didn't care about this. However, he was still secretly shocked in his heart. It hadn't been a long time since he had intruded, and someone had already noticed him. Moreover, such a powerful expert had quickly intercepted him. The strength of the heaven realm was obviously more unfathomable than he had imagined. The martial great master was the leader among the many immortal inheritances of the heaven realm. He was also a human race, so he was instinctively interested in these things. "He's here. He's here. That fool Gao Qingye has finally come to our Kaitai city," someone suddenly exclaimed. Yishuan looked towards the source of the exclamation. He saw a figure approaching from afar. What surprised Yishuan was that this figure was kowtowing every 3 steps and bowing every 5 steps. He was walking towards the Kaitai city step by step. He was dressed in black. His face was ordinary. However, his expression was extremely indifferent. He was doing this action like a machine. 2 years ago, there was a rumor that he was kowtowing every 3 steps and bowing every 5 steps. Now, I finally see him in person. What do you people know? Gao Qingye is imitating the ancient sages. If he can be valued by a senior of the martial great master, then his future achievements will be limitless. He may even be more brilliant than the former young Dragon List top disciple, Qin Lai. Such a person has great perseverance and wisdom. His future achievements will be limitless. It is said that when he was in the human world, he was already a peerless genius. Later, after he ascended to the northern plains, he kept kowtowing every 3 steps and bowing every 5 steps. Now he has finally arrived at the southern wasteland from the central plains. It has been a full 300 years. Human world, ascended. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard these two words. He felt as if he had grasped the source of this matter. However, he quickly suppressed his excitement. He looked at that robot-like figure in the distance. He couldn't help but feel moved in his heart. With his cultivation and state of mind, even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, he wouldn't feel anything. However, even he couldn't help but feel admiration for Gao Qingye. Having cultivated to this point, he had long since understood that innate talent and intelligence were not the decisive factors in the path of cultivation. The most important thing was to have unchanging willpower. Those old antiques who had proven their Tao had already cultivated to the peak of the demigod realm. But in the end, they died at the peak of the demigod realm. This was because they had lost their sharpness and the perseverance to move forward. Even if they were half a step away, they wouldn't dare to trigger the divine tribulation. Although Gao Qingye's 300 years seemed to have been wasted, in reality, these 300 years were also a process of spiritual cultivation. With the resources of the martial great master, cultivation was but a matter of minutes. The truly difficult thing to cultivate was the state of mind, and what he had tempered in these 300 years was this spiritual cultivation. It could be said that Gao Qingye had great perseverance and was also very smart. The martial great master is going to have a great talent. Congratulations! Yi Shiwen clasped his hands and said. Although Gao Qingye had just reached the longevity realm, he could already see that his future was limitless. If it wasn't for the fact that Gao Qingye had most likely been selected by the martial great master, he would have been a little moved. He was different from Li Yu's terrifyingly strong, innate talent. He was more satisfied with Gao Qingye's perseverance. Sigh. The old beggar sighed and said, if he can really join my martial great master, that would be great. Oh, I'm a little curious. Such a fine jade. I'm afraid no sect would let go of it easily. Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. To a large sect, the most important thing wasn't resources or cultivation techniques, but talents. As long as there was an endless supply of talents, they would have everything. And this Gao Qingye was undoubtedly a top-notch talent. How could they push away talents? Could it be that this Gao Qingye has a bad character? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but ask. If he was a scheming and vicious person, then no matter how talented he was, he wouldn't be accepted into the sect. That's not it. The old beggar shook his head and said, this can be considered a family scandal. Originally, it shouldn't be spread out. But now, other than these ordinary people, the higher-ups of the heavenly realm have already spread out, so it doesn't matter if it is spread out or not. Because when Gao Qingye was in the human world, he once destroyed the life of the martial great master's descendant. Therefore, he said that not only the martial great master, but any immortal inheritance in the heavenly realm who dares to take in Gao Qingye would be his enemy. Otherwise, how could such a fine jade be left unattended? This is a family feud, logically speaking. Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. He didn't believe that this martial great master would be a broad-minded person who could endure such a deep blood feud. Sigh. This matter is also a scandal because the descendant of the martial great master did evil in the human world, causing millions of people to suffer. He committed a great crime and deserved to die. The old beggar sighed and said, only now did Yi Shiwen understand that there was actually such a complicated reason behind this. So that's how it is. But since your martial great master doesn't want this person, then I'll accept him, no problem. Chapter 2299. What you? The old beggar looked at Yi Shiwen in amazement. He did not understand why Yi Shiwen dared to stand up at this time. Martial sect had Emperor King level masters. Their strength was unimaginably deep. To be able to become a deputy sect master in martial sect, this strength was already unimaginable to ordinary people. Although he did not specifically point out who it was not important at all. Any deputy sect master of martial sect was above countless people. Even the old beggar was not willing to provoke such a person. Was Yi Shiwen crazy? What's so strange about this? Is Gao Qingye a good talent? Is he righteous? Is it not enough? Yi Shiwen said with a smile, causing millions of people to suffer. Such a person's death is not enough. So what if he is killed? Yi Shiwen had to say that Gao Qingye's way of doing things was very in line with his appetite. If it was him, he would also do the same in the same situation. No matter what background you have, there was nothing to be afraid of even if you poke a big hole in the sky. What's more, he was only a deputy sect master of martial sect. He could not cover the sky with one hand, let alone control him in deity transformation abyss. But you have to be clear, although he has not walked in the world for a long time, he has countless disciples. If you accept Gao Qingye, it is equivalent to accepting this karma. When the time comes, your troubles will not be small. Don't look down on you because you are not a person of heaven realm. When the time comes, there will be a way to find trouble with you. The old beggar said with a straight face, I've never been afraid of troubles. I've always been plagued by troubles. Ha ha ha. Who cares about the heavens? I only insist on doing the right thing. This is my martial arts, and no one can shake my determination. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly and said, Good. You are a man. I admire you. The old beggar's eyes lit up and he laughed boldly. Now the younger generation will surpass the older generation. The younger generation will surpass the older generation. How can a golden scale be like a dragon in a pond? If such a good jade is buried, it will be a pity. There are some things I can't stand, but I can still help you. The old beggar said heroically. Back then, the Qin emperor risked universal condemnation and lifted the ban on martial arts, allowing everyone to practice martial arts. Only then did the human race prosper again. You're right about one thing. Trouble is nothing. When there's too much trouble, it doesn't matter anymore. He couldn't stand it for a long time. At this moment, the two of them were no longer as cautious as before. Yi Shiwen was no longer deliberately being modest and low-key, and the old beggar was no longer like an ordinary beggar on the roadside. His luck has turned for the better since he met you, the old beggar said with a laugh. Yi Shiwen smiled and strode forward towards Gao Qingye. Gao Qingye kept kowtowing mechanically. Suddenly, he sensed that a figure had appeared in front of him. He habitually scanned the figure with his divine thought. Suddenly, he felt that the figure was as vast and unfathomable as the sea. He immediately said, Greetings, Senior. May I know why you have stopped me? Let's get up first. Yi Shiwen raised his hand, and suddenly, Gao Qingye only felt an inexhaustible energy supporting him, so much so that he couldn't even kneel down. Senior. He looked at the person in front of him in surprise. Are you willing to acknowledge me as your master? Yi Shiwen looked at Gao Qingye and asked with a smile. Gao Qingye was stunned for a moment, as if he had suddenly crashed. It seemed that he had never thought that someone would actually accept him as a disciple. He had already ascended for hundreds of years. Many things, even if he originally didn't know, were now clear. It was related to the scourge that he had killed back then. These years, the relationship between the human world and the heaven realm had also become closer and closer. And he didn't have any backing in the heaven realm. All the way to the longevity realm and ascended, he had relied on a mysterious inheritance that he had obtained back then. When he was in the human world, as a powerhouse of the longevity realm, he naturally swept through everyone and became an ancestor. But in the heaven realm, powerhouses like him couldn't be considered as the bottom of the heaven realm, but at most he was just a so-called small giant. He had some status, but in fact it was nothing. Offending the deputy sect leader of the martial sect almost immediately made all the forces in the heaven realm look down on him. There was no need to doubt the strength of the martial sect in the heaven realm. It could be said that they were the leader of the group, and no one dared to defy them. For such a small character, offending the deputy sect leader of the martial sect was a loss no matter how one looked at it. Even he himself was a little discouraged. Right now, he was just relying on his unwillingness to admit defeat. He didn't expect that a miracle would really happen. I only have one question for you. Do you regret killing that scumbag then? I don't regret it. Gao Qingye gritted his teeth and said resolutely. Good. That suits my taste. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. Let me ask you again. Are you willing to be my disciple? Disciple pays respect to master. Gao Qingye didn't hesitate and immediately knelt down. Although he didn't know Yi Shiwen's background, he could feel that Yi Shiwen was stronger than him, much stronger than him. Good. Since you are already my disciple, then I will make it clear to you. Master is not someone from the heaven realm, and I am not from the martial sect, Yi Shiwen said. Gao Qingye's eyes were somewhat surprised. Not from the heaven realm. For him, other than the human world, there was only the heaven realm. Where else could it be? You will slowly understand these things in the future. Master's surname is Yi, and my name is Shiwen. Above you, there is a senior sister. In the future, you will have the opportunity to meet. Yi Shiwen said, Master, this disciple is in trouble. I am afraid that I will bring trouble to Master. Gao Qingye said with some embarrassment, I have heard about your matter. However, although I am not from the martial sect, the martial sect can't control me. The deputy sect leader of the martial sect has a great reputation, but it can't scare me. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Let's go. Master is going to the martial sect. Come with me? Yes, Master. Gao Qingye was still confused. Just like that, he recognized a master. It was a very wonderful thing for him. Congratulations, young Master Yi. You have accepted a good disciple. The old beggar cupped his hands and said, Thank you for your kind words, Senior. Can we go now? He said, Yes, yes. I've been wanting to attend his wedding for a long time. Let's go now. After the old beggar finished speaking, he used an escape technique and disappeared without a trace. Gao Qingye was inexplicably shocked. Although his cultivation wasn't very profound in the heaven realm, it wasn't ordinary either. People called him a small tycoon. However, he couldn't see how the old beggar had left. It was as if he had disappeared without a trace in a split second. Let's go. Yi Shiwen immediately took a step forward. The light wings on his back instantly unfolded and directly brought Gao Qingye along. When Gao Qingye reacted again, he was already thousands of miles away. He was inexplicably shocked. He had never seen or heard of such an amazing movement technique. After a while, Yi Shiwen caught up with the old beggar. When the old beggar saw Yi Shiwen chasing after him, he couldn't help but laugh and said, Your movement technique is really amazing. I am afraid that no one under the eternal realm can keep up with you. Senior, you flatter me, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Ha ha, the old beggar rarely praised people like this in my life. Let's go. The old beggar took a step forward, and his speed was a little faster. Yi Shiwen was not to be outdone. He quickly followed and actually competed with his movement technique. Behind Yi Shiwen, Gao Qingye only felt that his whole body was spinning. He simply couldn't see the changes in his surroundings. He didn't even dare to look at it. Just a casual glance would make his whole body feel nauseous and uncomfortable. This speed had already exceeded his previous imagination. He didn't even dare to imagine how fast this speed was. However, he didn't have much time to think about it. The two of them stopped one after another. They almost tore the space and walked out of the space crack. After seeing everything clearly, Gao Qingye was even more astonished. The density of space was completely different in different worlds. Given his cultivation at the 10,000 longevity realm, he could barely tear open space in the lower realm. However, it was basically impossible in the heaven realm. Only by cultivating to the mysterious realm could one have the ability to shake the space. As for tearing the space, who knew what kind of terrifying ability it was possible to do it? But his master and the old beggar had almost casually torn the space in the heaven realm. This level of cultivation was simply unimaginable. In other words, this time he was most likely under the tutelage of a great figure. Although this great figure might not be in the heaven realm, nor was it an expert of the martial ancestor realm as he had imagined. At this time, these were not important at all. He had also created a foundation in the human world, but at the same time, he could only be considered a rogue cultivator in the heaven realm. He had no foundation, no inheritance, and no one to guide him. Therefore, even if he was humiliated, he could only kowtow every 3 steps and bow every 5 steps. To move the heart of some big shots at once, he was even a rogue cultivator. How difficult would it be? But now, it seemed like he didn't have to worry about anything. Although he didn't know where this master came from, it was obvious that his background was not small. He was also very confident. Even if he was facing the vice sect leader of the martial ancestor sect, it would not be able to make him waver. It seemed that this time he had finally followed the right master. And in front of the three of them, there was a continuous range of mountains. These mountains floated in midair, surrounded by clouds and mist. It was a scene of immortals. There were immortal birds and strange beasts everywhere. A row of egrets flew into the blue sky. Indistinctly, there was celestial music descending. This was the orthodoxy of the entire heaven realm. It was also the strongest existence that led the heroes, the base of the martial ancestor realm. And under this continuous range of mountains, there was a white jade staircase that connected the mountains and the ground, emitting a white light. Many people came and went on it. Chapter 2300. It was already bustling with noise and excitement. At this moment, there were even more people coming and going. Because of Qin Li's confirmation, the martial sect naturally held a special event. The birth of a god was indeed qualified to be announced to the world and be revered by thousands of people. At this time, many old monsters who had not appeared in the world had also come to congratulate him or let their disciples come on their behalf. They were all willing to give face to the martial sect. It was also a very important thing to befriend a future god. This is the martial sect? Gao Qingye looked over. In the void, in the mountain range that was surrounded by clouds, there was a faintly discernible infinite space. This was the behemoth that shocked the entire heaven realm. It was also the place that nurtured countless outstanding talents of the human race. This was also the place that he originally yearned to join the most. But at this time, to him, there was not the slightest surge of emotions, only a kind of indifference. Although the martial sect was good, it was not his. Master Yi, welcome to the martial sect. The old beggar laughed and took the lead. Because there was no need to hurry. Gao Qingye could finally see the old beggar's steps clearly at this time. He was stepping on a 7-colored escape light, and his figure was like a dream, leading into the void at an extremely fast speed. It was a very impressive movement technique. Yi Shiwen also took a step forward. This was a mysterious step. He did not open his light wings again, but Gao Qingye could clearly feel that this mysterious step should be related to the light wings from before. The two of them, one in front and one behind, were not slow in the slightest. They had already rushed to the martial organization's staircase. They did not choose to directly enter. Instead, they chose to walk up the stairs to show their respect to the martial organization. As he got closer to the martial organization, Gao Qingye realized that the endless mountain range he had just seen was actually not even 1,000th of it. The rest of the mountain range would not appear in the air. It was obvious that it had been hidden by someone with great magic power. Yi Shiwen's eyesight was even stronger, and he could see through it in an instant. These hidden spaces had been buried in countless subspaces, like the sand in the Ganges River, endless. The mountains were stacked on top of each other, and good deeds soared into the sky. The mountains were beautiful, and the waters were beautiful. The spiritual energy was even more intense. Compared to other places in the heaven realm, it was countless times denser. This place has beautiful mountains and clear waters. I don't know how many spiritual veins are buried underneath it. It seems that this place has been transformed into a paradise by man-made means. Amazing, amazing! Yi Shiwen couldn't help but exclaim. Young Master Yi has good eyesight. In fact, this is just a mortal land, but under the transformation of our former sect master, the Qin Emperor, it has reached its current scale. Although our martial sect has only been around for a short period of time and cannot be compared to the other immortal inheritances, but in terms of foundation, we are not the slightest bit inferior to them, and all of this is the legacy of the Qin Emperor. The old beggar said. Beside them, waves of people were climbing up the mountain. They didn't notice the 3 people on the side of the road at all. Fortunately, the jade stairs were big enough, so they didn't have to worry about bumping into each other. On the other hand, Gao Qingye became a little cautious. These passers-by, even if it was just a manservant, had unbelievably deep cultivation. His longevity realm cultivation was really very inconspicuous here. As the saying goes, there are great scholars who talk and laugh, and there is no such thing as a commoner. To be able to come and visit an orthodox martial arts sect like the martial sect, one could imagine that they wouldn't be ordinary people. However, when he looked at the back view in front of him, he immediately felt confident. Although he couldn't be compared to the martial sect, he also had a master who wasn't bad. Yi Shiwen could feel the change in Gao Qingye's aura behind him and couldn't help but feel a little amused. The martial sect was an orthodox martial arts sect in the world, with such a great reputation, not to mention Gao Qingye. Even he himself was very curious. The Jade Void Holy Land has arrived. Suddenly, someone shouted. Then, everyone on the entire staircase suddenly became nervous, as if they were all shocked by this matter. Yi Shiwen also turned his head and looked over. He saw an old man in a Taoist robe and a man in green walking up the stairs. Both of them had dignified appearances and extraordinary auras. Hiss, I didn't expect the Holy Lord of the Jade Void Holy Land to come personally. This Qin Lai is so honored. Isn't that so? Although the Jade Void Holy Land and the martial sect had some conflicts in the past, they put in a lot of effort during the demon invasion. Now, with the support of the martial sect, they are becoming more and more prosperous. However, the current Holy Lord actually came personally to make peace. This is giving Qin Lai enough face. Yi Shiwen looked over and saw that everyone's eyes were focused on the old man in the Taoist robe. Young Master Yi, the Jade Void Holy Land is also an old immortal inheritance in our heaven realm. This old fellow is the current Holy Lord of the Jade Void Holy Land. His strength can't be underestimated. The old beggar transmitted his voice to Yi Shiwen to explain, as if he understood that Yi Shiwen didn't know many things about the heaven realm. Yi Shiwen nodded in gratitude. He really didn't know many things about the heaven realm, but at least he knew how powerful the immortal inheritance was. Any immortal inheritance was established by the gods. Because the gods were immortal and immortal, the forces they established were called immortal inheritances by others. The Jade Void Holy Land was an old immortal inheritance. Obviously, it was also a powerful force. Even if it couldn't be compared to the Hidden Valley, it couldn't be underestimated. Moreover, this old man was the current Holy Lord of the Jade Void Holy Land. Naturally, his strength couldn't be underestimated. Yi Shiwen looked over and saw that the old man's cultivation was really profound. He had probably entered the advanced immortal level. No wonder he could preside over an immortal inheritance. From the strength of the Jade Void Holy Lord, it could be seen that the Jade Void Holy Land was not ordinary. Hey, isn't the person behind him the newly promoted holy disciple of the Jade Void Holy Land, Lu Bufan? Someone said in surprise. Yes, it's Lu Bufan. It's said that Lu Bufan also ascended from the mortal world. He has cultivated to the celestial realm in just a few hundred years. He's extremely talented. It's said that he might have a chance to become the first holy disciple in the future. This time, the Jade Void Holy Land brought him to such a crucial ceremony. You can imagine how important he is. Young Master Yi, I won't accompany you for now. I have to find Qin Lai and tell him about you. When Yi Shiwen turned his head again, the old beggar beside him had already disappeared without a trace. However, no one noticed it. Only the Jade Void Sage Master seemed to have sensed something. He glanced at Yi Shiwen, but didn't see anything. Only then did he give up with some doubts. That's right. Let's go, Yi Shiwen said to Gao Qingye. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of Gao Qingye clenching his fists and staring at Lu Bufan. His eyes were a little red. Lu Bufan seemed to have finally noticed Gao Qingye's existence at this time. A look of surprise flashed across his face. He didn't expect to see Gao Qingye here. If he remembered correctly, he clearly remembered that Gao Qingye should still be kowtowing all the way here. At his speed, it might take a few hundred years to reach the martial sect. The heaven realm was too vast. Ordinary people might not be able to leave any of the 5 regions in their lifetime. Isn't this Gao Qingye? Lu Bufan said a few words to the Jade Void Holy Lord. Then, he immediately trotted all the way to Yi Shiwen and Gao Qingye's side. There was a hint of provocation in his eyes and a sneer on his face. I heard that you were still kowtowing in the Central Plains. How did you come to the martial sect so quickly? Oh, I know. You must have cheated. You must have flown here. TSK, TSK. It was originally impossible for you to enter the martial sect. Do you think you can enter the martial sect now? What a joke. Lu Buffon, Gao Qingye said coldly. You still have the face to appear in front of me. Why don't I have the face? Gao Qingye, do you think that we are still in the mortal world? Back then, I was suppressed by you. But now, with your cultivation in the longevity realm, what right do you have to fight with me in the heaven realm? What a joke. Lu Buffon laughed coldly, as if he didn't care about Gao Qingye at all. What if I accidentally beat you to death? TSK, TSK, that would be such a pity. Great hero, I asked you to spare his life at that time, but why didn't you listen? Although he committed all sorts of crimes, in any case, he had a powerful backer. That hot potato, none of us were willing to touch it. Only you pretended to be a great hero. In the mortal world, you have received a lot of praise, but here in the heavenly realm, in this place, you are nothing at all. That guy did evil and caused millions of people to suffer. How can we turn a blind eye to such a monstrous sin? As cultivators, we must have a righteous heart. Gao Qingye said coldly. Jingji, ha ha ha, it's too funny. You're still insisting on your old ways. I really don't know which antique taught you. What era is it now? Lu Buffon couldn't help but sneer. Only strength is the king. Your old ways are already outdated. Look at you now. You are really disgusting. It has been hundreds of years, and your cultivation hasn't improved at all. Do you still think that you are right? What is right will always be right. It won't be distorted because of strength. Gao Qingye was about to speak when Yi Shiwen's voice suddenly appeared. The bigger the fist is the truth. This sentence isn't wrong. However, your fist isn't big enough, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. However, his words were like an epigram that directly struck Lu Buffon's heart, causing him to feel a chill down his spine. Master, Gao Buffon cupped his hands and said, What? You actually acknowledged such a little kid as your master? You are really regressing now. Lu Buffon laughed loudly. Chapter 2301. Shut up. Gao Qingye was furious. In just a short period of time, he had already regarded Yi Shiwen as his teacher from the bottom of his heart. It was not only because of Yi Shiwen's unfathomable strength and bone structure. More importantly, it was Yi Shiwen who took him in when he was ostracized by the entire heaven realm for hundreds of years. The gratitude in his heart was needless to say. Teachers had the same status in any world and any race. However, Gao Qingye looked much older than Yi Shiwen. Gao Qingye had the appearance of a middle-aged man. He had improved his physical body during his ascension. Therefore, he looked much younger than Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was different. He always looked like he was in his early 20s. In fact, he was getting younger over the years. He looked like a teenager of 18 or 19 years old. Hence, in Lu Buffon's words, he became a young boy. Gao Qingye, where do you think this is? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? Lu Buffon's face suddenly turned sullen. Get lost, Yi Shiwen said coldly. There's no room for you to speak here. Get your sect elders to come over. Kid, don't think that you can order me around just because you've become this guy's master. I think you still don't understand what kind of trouble you've gotten yourself into. Lu Buffon looked at Yi Shiwen provocatively. In his opinion, Gao Qingye was only in the longevity realm. His master was not that powerful. Not everyone in the heaven realm knew that no one wanted to accept Gao Qingye. However, everyone in the upper echelons of the heaven realm knew about it. This kid had committed such a heinous crime. He must not know about it. Hence, it was obvious that this guy who had not even come into contact with the upper echelons of the heaven realm was not that powerful. He was a newly promoted holy disciple of the Jade Void Palace. He was known to have the hope of challenging the first holy disciple in the future. He was looked up to wherever he went. In the immortal inheritance, only the most talented and potential could become a holy disciple or a saintess. Among them, the strongest would be the first holy disciple or the first saintess. Generally speaking, The future leader of the immortal forces would be selected from these holy disciples and saintesses. Among the countless disciples in the Jade Void Holy Land, only a handful could become a holy disciple. Didn't the elders of your sect teach you to respect the strong? Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Expert? With just you? Lu Bufan laughed as if he had heard the most incredible thing. Ha 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 ha. It's so funny. Gao Qingye, I didn't expect you to have such a humorous master. Chengyi, let's go. There's no need to waste your breath on a despicable person. Yi Shiwen glanced at Lu Bufan with a contemptuous look on his face. He didn't like such a vile person who fawned on the rich and powerful. Yes, master, Gao Qingye replied. The two of them turned around and ignored Lu Bufan. Everyone looked at Lu Bufan as if they were looking at a fool. Obviously, he had been fooled. Stop! Lu Bufan became furious. He took a step forward and grabbed Yi Shiwen with his big hand. He directly grabbed Yi Shiwen's shoulder. Whoosh! To everyone's surprise, Lu Bufan's big hand didn't manage to grab Yi Shiwen's shoulder. Instead, it passed through Yi Shiwen's body. Lu Bufan grabbed nothing. He was a little stunned. He didn't expect that there would be a time when he couldn't grab Yi Shiwen at all. At this time, all the people on the Jade Stone stairs who were paying attention to this side suddenly had a solemn look on their faces. They could see that Yi Shiwen's movement technique was extremely brilliant. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape Lu Bufan's shoulder grab so easily. This person wasn't an ordinary person. Originally, everyone was just watching a joke. They only thought that Yi Shiwen was a random cultivator who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. After all, although Gao Qingye's matter wasn't announced to the world, it could be said that all the higher-ups knew about it. Some well-informed people also knew that Gao Qingye had been completely blacklisted by the martial sect's deputy sect master, who dared to get into trouble. Although this matter was the martial sect's deputy sect master's fault, there was no other way. The martial sect clan was powerful. No one was willing to offend the martial sect for such a guy. If that happened, how could they survive in the heaven realm? Now it seemed that this guy was probably not a hothead. He was definitely not ordinary. However, where did this guy come from? To be able to make Lu Bufan, who was in the heaven realm, unable to catch him, he had to at least be in the profound realm. However, no one had seen this guy among the profound realm experts. Did he really come from the sky? Damn it, stop right there. Lu Bufan could feel the eyes of the people around him full of mockery and pity. He immediately became furious. Ever since he ascended, he had never been humiliated like this. Whoosh! A ball of light burst out from his hand, and the divine light covered the sky and the sun. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. This Lu Bufan was so provoked that he actually used the Jade Illusion Holy Technique on the mountain of the martial sect. He was going to fight with his life on the line. Get lost! Don't be so shameless! A loud shout was heard. Lu Bufan, who had just raised his whole body's power, was forced to take a few steps back. The Jade Illusion Holy Technique that he had raised was also suddenly scattered. At this time, everyone's complexion was not dignified, but one after another changed greatly. To be able to disperse a celestial realm master's martial arts with a loud shout, this was not something that an ordinary person could do. Everyone's vigilance towards Yi Shiwen rose to another level with a whoosh. Who is this person? Why have I never seen him before? He's actually so powerful. However, the only thing I can be sure of is that this time he is going against the martial sect. Even if he has some background, he definitely can't be compared to the martial sect. I'm afraid there will be a good show this time. Not far behind Lu Bufan, the Jade Illusion Holy Master's eyes flashed, and he shouted loudly, "Fellow cultivator, I'm afraid it's against the rules to bully the weak." Then, before he finished speaking, a mass of chaos suddenly exploded in the void. Countless energy surged into the chaos, but it did not affect the Jade stairs in the slightest. Some people were the first to react, and they looked at the Jade Illusion Holy Master and Yi Shiwen in shock. The two of them must have exchanged blows just now. Looking at the situation, it seemed that the Jade Illusion Holy Master could not do anything to Yi Shiwen in a hurry. Moreover, There was not a trace of excess energy overflowing when the two of them exchanged blows. It directly surged into the boundless chaos, and there were no ripples. Very soon, the place where the two of them exchanged blows had returned to normal, as if the battle had not happened. Everyone was even more shocked. What kind of status did the Jade Illusion Holy Master have? He was the master of the immortal inheritance. If it was not to show respect to the Qin Emperor, such a peerless expert would come and go with carriages all over the sky, and golden lotuses would fall from the sky. It could be said to be very powerful. How could he climb the heaven stairway with ordinary people like them? Such a peerless expert had definitely proven his way, but he could not do anything to Yi Shiwen in a hurry. Although he had attacked in a hurry, and it was impossible for him to act wantonly in a martial arts grandmaster, how could a Wei confirmation expert be ordinary? This could only mean that Yi Shiwen was not simple. Yi Shiwen's back view became more and more unfathomable and immeasurable in their eyes. Take care of your disciples first. The dignified Jade Illusion Holy Land is famous all over the world, but your holy disciples are all this trash. I am really too disappointed. You don't live up to your reputation. Yi Shiwen's voice traveled down, but his and Gao Qingye's silhouettes were getting further and further away, disappearing into the clouds. Everyone looked at the Jade Illusion Holy Master. This was a blatant slap in the face. You don't live up to your reputation. Is there anything more humiliating than this? The dignified Jade Illusion Holy Land had actually been belittled by Yi Shiwen. They looked over, and sure enough, the Jade Illusion Holy Master's face suddenly turned ashen. His face had been slapped by Yi Shiwen. However, he was also proud of his status. He had already failed once, so naturally, he would not attack again. Especially when Yi Shiwen looked at him as a junior. He glared at Lu Bufan with an ugly expression, then snorted coldly. He simply ignored Lu Bufan and went up the stairs. Everyone withdrew their gazes. No one dared to provoke the Jade Illusion Holy Master at this time. Lu Bufan gritted his teeth, and his whole body was trembling with anger. The gazes of the people around him were all mocking him. He knew very well that the Jade Illusion Holy Master's cold snort represented his incomparable disappointment in him. This would greatly affect his future development in the Jade Illusion Holy Land. In the Jade Illusion, Holy Master's words carried enormous weight, but in reality, they were almost the same. This was caused by that damn Gao Qingye and his master. When Gao Qingye was in the mortal world, he had always been able to suppress him. After arriving in the heaven realm, he thought that his luck had turned for the better. Who knew that he would still be humiliated by Gao Qingye? Gao Qingye, I must get back at you. Do you think you're still in the mortal world? I want you dead. His expression was unusually ferocious. Yi Shiwen could not be bothered with the two people from the Jade Illusion Holy Land behind him. Gao Qingye, who was behind him, did not know that Yi Shiwen had just exchanged blows with the Jade Illusion Holy Master. Although they were in a hurry and did not dare to use their full strength, it was enough to probe each other. The Jade Illusion Holy Master was indeed the Holy Master of the Jade Illusion Holy Land. The ingenuity of the Jade Illusion Holy Technique was obvious to all. It was much more tyrannical than an ordinary advanced immortal level. However, at this time, he was not in the mood to pay attention to this. Instead, he asked casually, Qingye, in the mortal world, is there a place called Earth? Yes, how did Master know? Gao Qingye was a little puzzled as to how Yi Shiwen knew. Nothing, I was just asking. The excitement in Yi Shiwen's eyes disappeared in a flash, and his rapid breathing also calmed down. Unknowingly, they had already reached the martial sect. Chapter 2302. His heart was filled with perilous waves that were difficult to calm down. He had finally heard the word Earth again. It was as heavy as 1,000 kilograms. At this moment, his heart was filled with mixed feelings, and he didn't know what to say. However, he was extremely strong-willed and managed to suppress it in an instant. Moreover, the two of them had already arrived at the martial arts great sect. After ascending the stairs, they arrived at a huge square. Clouds and mist surrounded the place. It looked full of celestial aura and radiance. The entire square was filled with representatives from various major forces who had come to congratulate them. Even if they weren't at the level of a holy lord like the Jade Void Sage Master, they were still the cream of the crop from the major forces. There were also many holy disciples like the Jade Void Sage Disciple who had come personally. These were the elites of the human clan. Each of them had an imposing appearance, a majestic gait, and an extraordinary aura. The arrival of Yi Shiwen and Lu Bufan also attracted the attention of these people. However, it was obvious that no one knew who these two people were, especially Yi Shiwen, who had never shown his face in the Heaven Realm before. Naturally, these Heaven's Pride experts of the Heaven Realm could not recognize Yi Shiwen. However, someone recognized Gao Qingye. Isn't that Gao Qingye, who ascended from the lower realm hundreds of years ago? Why is he here? I heard that he was kowtowing hundreds of years ago. Has he already reached the martial arts great sect? How is that possible? It's not like you don't know that he offended the deputy sect leader of the martial arts great sect. Even if he really kowtowed every step, the martial arts great sect would never accept him. That's right, that fool. It's been hundreds of years, and he still thinks that it's useful. In the end, it's still the same. After some people's reminders, the others quickly remembered that such a person had indeed existed. Hundreds of years ago, this matter could be said to have caused a sensation. However, as time passed, this matter slowly faded. Except for some people with ulterior motives, no one paid attention to this matter anymore. However, they still remembered this matter. For some people, it was their first time seeing Gao Qingye. Their eyes were filled with ridicule, especially since many people knew about the grievances between him and the martial arts great sect. Now that Gao Qingye had actually appeared here, it seemed interesting. After a while, the two from the Jade Void Holy Land also came up, especially Lu Bufan. He looked at Yi Shiwen as if he wanted to kill him. Next to him, the Jade Void Holy Master's expression was also quite unfriendly. Many people still did not know what had happened. They were curious as to who would dare to provoke the Jade Void Sage leader. So it's Uncle Master, one of the Jade Void. Suddenly, a hearty laughter sounded. Junior Brother Lu, I apologize for not going out to meet you. Suddenly, a figure walked out of the clouds and quickly came before the Jade Illusionary Sage leader with an apologetic look. It was a young man in a dark blue Taoist robe. He had sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. He had an extraordinary bearing and was not inferior to any of the heroes present. He walked all the way to the Jade Illusory Sage Lord and said, Uncle Master Wan, the elders in the sect have been waiting for a long time. You are too humble. You could have just come here. Is there a need to climb the sky stairwell? Haha, I'm just showing my respect to His Majesty, Emperor Qin. Since that's the case, I'll go in first. The Jade Void Sage leader laughed heartily and looked deeply at Yi Shiwen. Then, he took a step forward and disappeared into the clouds. Without exception, everyone present breathed a sigh of relief. After all, they were not on the same level as the Jade Void Sage leader. Even though these geniuses might not have any scruples in front of others, they still felt a lot of pressure when there was a Tao validation expert, a world-renowned expert, present. After the Jade Void Sage leader left, they clearly felt a sense of relief. No one felt that there was anything wrong with this man's obvious preferential treatment. He was a veteran immortal inheritance. Moreover, the Holy Master had come personally. He had given the martial sect a lot of face, and the martial sect could not disrespect him. Junior Brother Lu, we haven't seen each other for more than 100 years. Your cultivation has become even more exquisite. The man came forward and chatted with Lu Bufan. Master, what should we do? Gao Qingye looked at Yi Shiwen nervously. Let's ignore them. We are waiting for someone, Yi Shiwen said. He was naturally waiting for the old beggar to bring Qin Lai out. Now that they were in the martial sect, it was not good for him to force his way in. Understood, Gao Qingye nodded. Although the gazes and discussions of the people around him made him quite unhappy, he would not have calmed down so easily if he had just ascended. However, after hundreds of years of experience, he had long understood that this was not a place where he could mess around. Suddenly, No one knew what Lu Buffon said to the man. The man strode in front of the two of them. He frowned slightly and looked at Gao Qingye. Then he said, Gao Qingye, how dare you come to our martial sect? Did the martial sect put me on the wanted list? Why can't I come? Gao Qingye clenched his fists and said angrily. How could he not be angry after hundreds of years of experience? He could only forcefully endure it. Oh, you really have a sharp tongue? The man could not help but sneer. Look, a conflict is about to break out. Some people have been paying attention to Gao Qingye. Sure enough, it was impossible for Gao Qingye to coexist peacefully with the people of the martial sect. Yun Shangzi usually puts the interests of the martial sect first. I'm afraid that in his eyes, Gao Qingye is not a good person. That's true. Yun Shangzi does not have any sand in his eyes. If anyone dares to say a bad word about the martial sect, it will attract his crazy revenge. Moreover, Gao Qingye has slapped the martial sect in the face. What? Could it be that your martial sect wants to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and kill me? Gao Qingye twisted his neck and said angrily. Yun Shangzi's expression immediately turned ugly. This was something that was difficult to say. Everyone said that Gao Qingye had offended the upper echelons of the martial sect. However, the martial sect could not say anything about this matter. Gao Qingye had an extremely good reputation in the lower realms. Moreover, he had killed the descendant of the martial sect's vice sect master. He had committed all sorts of crimes and caused the deaths of tens of millions of people. If such a monstrous demon was not related to the martial sect, it would have been fine to kill him. In fact, the martial sect, who had always prided themselves on being the true disciples of the human race, might even personally reward Gao Qingye and publicize it. They might even take him in as a disciple and carefully nurture him. In the future, he would be a pillar of the human race. However, this matter involved the vice sect master of the martial sect. Even if it was impossible for them to directly issue a warrant for Gao Qingye, they could not even openly say anything. They could only hint to the various great immortal inheritances that they were not allowed to accept Gao Qingye. The martial sect also cared about their face. They would not do such a shameless thing. So what if I kill you? Do you think I don't dare? Yun Shangzi said coldly. His gaze became cold. Because of Gao Qingye, the martial sect had suffered a lot of criticism. Although no one dared to say anything wrong about the martial sect in private, everyone had their own scales. It was clear who was right and who was wrong, so there was no need to say anything more. However, this matter involved another powerful elder of the martial sect. They could not afford to have any mishaps. Therefore, everything could only be blamed on Gao Qingye. Why didn't this guy die? Why did he ascend and embarrass the martial sect? If he died of old age in the lower realms, then there would not be such a problem. He would be a great hero, and the martial sect would not be implicated. This was an unforgivable crime for Yun Shangzi, who was the most loyal member of the martial sect. Then come and kill me, Gao Qingye said unyieldingly. He had such a straightforward temper. Otherwise, he would not have personally dealt with that scourge. This was a taboo that no one was willing to touch. You? Killing intent flashed in Yun Shangzi's eyes. He seemed to be weighing the pros and cons of doing so. Today is Senior Brother Qin's big day. I will not make a move here. Get lost. Our martial sect does not welcome you. In the end, he could not steal his heart and make a move in front of everyone. The impact was too bad. Can you represent the martial sect? Yishuan finally could not stand it anymore and asked, Of course I can. Who are you? Don't tell me you are his master? You really have guts. Yun Shangzi said coldly. Huh? Yishuan chuckled and said, What? Did your martial sect make a rule that no one is allowed to accept him? Well, of course not. Yun Shangzi could not help but choke. Could this kind of thing be announced to the world? If it was really announced to the world, then wouldn't it be a slap in the face? Do you think that you can represent anyone just because you are a representative of the people? Yishuan sneered and said, Originally, I heard that the martial sect is the pillar of the human race and the leader of the righteous path. Now I see that they are all filthy people. It would be a joke to say it out loud. Not only did the dignified martial sect have such a vile descendant, he also caused the deaths of tens of millions of people. Even if he died thousands of times, it would not be a pity. Qingye killed him to end your embarrassment. Who would have thought that not only are you not grateful, you are also suppressing him everywhere? Is this the dignified martial sect that is the pillar of the human race? If Emperor Qin was still here, how could he allow you scoundrels to create a foul atmosphere in the martial sect and ruin his reputation as the great emperor? Yi Shiwen's voice was like a powerful army that went straight into Yun Shangzi's heart. It was like a big bell that directly knocked into his heart, deafening. Yun Shangzi's back was drenched in cold sweat. He only felt that his voice was like the sound of the Tao. It actually felt like someone was blowing on his heart. Currently, he had only just reached the peak of the profound death realm. He was already outstanding among the younger generation of the heaven realm. However, compared to Yi Shiwen, he was still far behind. Compared to Yi Shiwen, he was a generation behind. Still not comprehending, Yi Shiwen shouted. Yun Shangzi suddenly felt as if he was suddenly enlightened. In that instant, he rushed into the Paong realm, the demigod realm. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.